NBA draft night. Nick Whalen, Alex Barutha hanging out with you on stream. We're telling ourselves, Alex, we're going to do the whole first round. NBA is moving it along a little faster these days now that we've split things up into 2 nights. But very excited to be hanging out for at least the next 2-3 hours here as we approach the actual start of the draft. Telecast is underway over on ESPN. We're going through a very long draft montage. I believe I just saw Nerlens Noel on the screen, so we are right where we need to be. Obviously a lot to discuss, and we'll talk well beyond the draft over the next couple hours. We'll get into some offseason topics, obviously hit the Giannis trade, and give you as much fantasy advice, as much futures betting advice as we can. But I do want to start there, Alex, because a good way to try to gauge where things are heading, especially as we're closing in on the number 1 overall pick, is to look at the betting markets. And the DraftKings Sportsbook has now moved AJ Dybantsa to minus 1,800 to be the number 1 overall pick for the Washington Wizards. I believe that was minus 525 earlier this morning. I know yesterday afternoon it was around minus 425. So we had some indications, some inklings that the Wizards were leaning in that direction. The betting market hadn't really caught up, but suffice it to say it now has.
Yes. And I mean, the Wizards invited Peterson in for, I think, multiple workouts, and we're talking to him a lot. And it seemed like they were really either doing their due diligence or just like mulling over the decision on whether or not to draft Peterson number 1. Look, I think I'm a Dybantsa guy as my number 1, like on my theoretical big board, but I also don't have like I didn't have a take on this before the college season started. And the feel I get is that a lot of people who have Darryn Peterson number 1 on their big board had it that way and made that decision almost before the season started, and would have had to have been proven wrong in such an extreme way by like AJ Dybantsa or Cam Boozer. And it just doesn't matter to a lot of those people that there were the full body cramping and the creatine, whether or not you believe that. But look, I think any of these 3 guys would be great number 1 picks.
I feel like I did hear a lot of that, I guess in defense of Peterson, throughout the kind of the end of the college season when everything was at its peak with the cramping. It was a lot of like, well, when these guys faced off in high school, Peterson really took it to him, which I don't know. I guess when we're only 1 year removed from those battles taking place, maybe you do put a little bit more stock into that. But to me, Peterson, the highs were high enough that if I'm Washington, I think something that's been lost in all this is we talk about Dybantsa like he's the safe, like low ceiling option. I really don't think that's the case either. I think there is actually quite a bit of a ceiling for Dybantsa. Is it maybe, top 5 to 7 player in the league like it could be for Darryn Peterson? Maybe not, but I mean, he's much bigger. He feels a little bit more physically developed. Obviously, I think if you're looking for leadership, if you're looking for who's the face of our franchise for the next 7 to 10 years, Dybantsa obviously checks that box a little bit more than Peterson. So I just think this debate has kind of been framed as like Peterson is the talent, Dybantsa is the safe option, but I still think there is a really high floor and a really high ceiling for Dybantsa.
I mean, I think Peterson is framed more as a risk, mostly just because of his body concerns. Like, what if the cramping comes back and then he's just like not able, like he can't do it. I agree with you though on Dybantsa. Like there's a case where he doesn't, like, what if he can't really get a consistent 3 ball? He kind of has this like flat shot. He's clearly more comfortable in the mid range. What if he isn't really as much of a playmaker as we hope he is, and he's not able to make these high level reads, and he just kind of turns into this like supersized DeMar DeRozan? Like, I don't think that's not what I'm expecting, because it's just, he seems like a great prospect, but yeah, he's not without fault. I think you could maybe argue Boozer's floor is higher. But of course there's plenty of, reasons to not like Boozer as well, if you want to take that stance.
So the Wizards are officially on the clock. Adam Silver addressed the nation. He was at the podium. We're doing 5 minutes here, so we are already at about the 3:45 mark as the telecast is showing us AJ Dybantsa. You can't even bet on the top 3 picks right now. Numbers are off the board right now at DraftKings. So they're starting with number 4. That would be Caleb Wilson at minus 900. That one has felt almost more locked in than anything else. Over the last few weeks, we've seen very few smoke signals, very few. They might want to move out of the pick. They might want to move up. They might want to move down. There's been almost none of that for the Chicago Bulls. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here. I absolutely love Caleb Wilson. I think to get a player like that at 4 is an absolute gift. You look at how many of the 2-player, 3-player drafts we've had, at least on paper, going in, where it feels like, man, picking 4th is a huge disappointment. I don't feel like that's the case at all in this draft.
No, I think a lot of people have Caleb Wilson in his own tier. Like he is the tier 2 prospect. And look, of course, like you have to consider, like, is the 3 ball going to work? If the 3 ball doesn't work, what are you looking at as a player? I'm actually relatively encouraged. Like he took a lot of, I mean, you can make what you want of like a guy taking a lot of long 2s, especially like, posting up from the elbow and taking these like turnaround long 2s. He converted those like a pretty good rate. He's a solid free throw shooter. Like I think it would almost surprise me if he can't reach competency as just like a catch and shoot 3-point guy.
Yeah, the form is a little wonky, but it's not that bad. It's not Michael Kidd-Gilchrist level by any means. It's smoother, I think, than the percentage would imply. He was 7 of 27 from 3 at the college level, but like you said, comfortable, kind of fading away in the mid range. It's not like this has to be a set shot. I need time to get it off. I mean, he's raw. There's no question about it. But another guy, much like Peterson, where I actually think the highs for Caleb Wilson might be higher than they are for Peterson, which is saying a lot. Like if you pulled the 10 best plays from every prospect in this class, I think he's number 1 on the list.
I think so too. I mean, especially because he can pass a bit. I was surprised at how good his vision was on a lot of these plays. They ran a lot through him because they didn't have like amazing point guard play or anything like that. And yeah, I mean, athletically, arguably the most athletic guy in the class. Yeah, I know there's a lot of there's some hand wringing about his defense. Like he's more of a tools guy than he is like an IQ guy right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think he's a fantastic prospect in terms of like if you have the number 4 pick. Like the Bulls, you just have to be stoked that you're in this position to draft him.
All right, the pick is in, says the telecast. Okay. We're yet to see Adam Silver move over to the podium. Also yet to see anybody tip the pick.
I know,
which is interesting. I was kind of waiting on that. I don't know if we have finally ended that decade-long process, because like even after Woj left ESPN, we were still getting plenty of that last year, right? I'm not misremembering.
I think so. Maybe there's some sort of like I don't know, maybe there's some sort of agreement now. It's like, don't tip the top 4. We can once we get into the 15, 16 range, like this becomes more of a morass. Maybe that flies now.
So if you're the Wizards, are you thinking about positional fit whatsoever? Does giving Trae Young that extension matter at all? I saw a lot of like, well, this rules out Darren Peterson. I absolutely hate when teams do that really anywhere inside like the top 4 or 5 picks, let alone at number 1.
No, I mean, I don't think, like, I know there's a lot of like, oh, Peterson's going to play the point guard, or he can be a point guard, or he's a lead guard or whatever. I still view him as like almost like he has some Devin Booker to me in his game, where he's coming off a lot of curls, at least at the college level, right? He's coming off curls, pump fake, drive. And I've heard comps to Lillard as well, as like, this is a lead guard, not a pure point. Like he can get 5, 6, 7 assists a game, but like that's not really what he does. He's not making advanced reads. So no, and because he's not a pure point guard, then I don't mind the Trae thing at all. I think I'm probably more optimistic and like the Trae Young signing / extension more than most people, because I think he's a good table setter for a young roster.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really ask Peterson to do a whole lot of playmaking at Kansas, especially kind of in the midst of the creatine stuff, which we didn't know at the time. Of course, he was kind of playing in spurts, and it was like when he is on the court, we are seeing a completely different version of the Kansas offense versus him being off the court, which was a more traditional style of basketball. But he was basically out there to just score for 8 minutes, and then they would pull him out. AJ Dybantsa. Nice. Officially the selection for the Washington Wizards. So okay, congrats to those who jumped in at minus 1,800 just before the draft. Cash it, maybe. We're cashing Dybantsa. Yeah, I mean, look, this is kind of the expectation all along. I think Washington, what was it, a month ago or so, maybe even less than that, 2 or 3 weeks ago, started to float out, we're deliberating between Peterson and Dybantsa. have a feeling we're going to get some stories after the draft that say it was maybe never all that close. A little bit surprising to me that there wasn't more chatter about movement at the top, with Utah specifically. But AJ Dybantsa officially the pick. So we'll talk about his fantasy fit and just kind of what this Wizards team looks like in a moment. But obviously now this puts Utah on the clock at number 2. We would expect Darryn Peterson to be the guy there. I will say though, Alex, I've been shopping this take around VSiN the last week. Does the Walker Kessler situation, does that impact the thinking at all if you're Utah? Because I think for a team that's been as bad as they've been, to think about positional fit seems crazy. You just want to get talent in the door. But if you're assuming Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, and Jaren Jackson Jr. are in your starting lineup next season, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me if you want to contend at least to draft Cameron Boozer. If you're now assuming that Walker Kessler might be out the door, I think that opens up a lot more of a one-to-one positional fit.
Yes. And I think I've heard enough analysts and people who are connected say that they probably like both guys equally and that they do really like Walker Cut. Like, I think it matters a little bit for them because they might be able to be like a legit playoff team next year. They have 50 win upside, I think. I don't know if I'd bank it, but it's like, it's there, if everything goes right for them. And look, I think if you really, really like Boozer more than Darryn Peterson in a big way, you take Boozer and then you just say, look, we'll move Kessler. We'll just figure it out. We'll deal with that, because as sort of positionally similar, like Jaren Jackson Jr., Cam Boozer, and Markkanen are very positionally similar players in terms of like their size, but they do not play alike at all. These are not similar play style guys. So I think they could work together in theory.
Mm-hmm. So as we mentioned, AJ Dybantsa officially the number 1 overall pick to the Washington Wizards. I know you've done a ton of research on him, Alex. You are also our graphics department tonight. So very good work on that. Let's take a look at what this means now for Washington. So we are looking at Trae Young, likely Keyshawn George at the 2. Well, actually, we'll see. I mean, Dybantsa, I think part of the appeal with him is that he can play at least 3 spots. I think right away you're looking at, maybe you could slide him down to the 2. He's probably more natural as a 3. He could slide up to the 4. Who gets pushed out of the starting lineup? Is it Keyshawn George or is it Bilal Coulibaly?
I think it's Coulibaly. You could maybe make the argument you would want Keyshawn George off the bench because he can do a little more with the basketball. And he could be like a 6th man type. I don't know if I would think that hard about it personally. I mean, you still have like Bub Carrington and Trey Johnson coming. Like, you're not going to be, defense is going to be your biggest issue off the bench, not offense. And so I don't know. I would start Keyshawn George. I think that guy I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, and that's why I asked. I mean, I think Keyshawn George is the better and more productive player, certainly. But Washington is in kind of a similar situation to Utah, where we're used to, especially in the fantasy world, just kind of casting this team aside and understanding that any Wizards player you draft is going to come with risk. And it's like, all right, there's really only like 2 guys in the starting lineup to worry about. It's going to take a little bit of an adjustment to take this team seriously. Like they have dudes at every position all of a sudden. And I think there is an argument that, maybe you want the length, you want the defense that Coulibaly brings, alongside someone like Trae Young, but you also have a pretty nice defensive front court right now in Anthony Davis and Alex Sarr.
You do. And look, Coulibaly is just not a proven floor spacer. Teams leave him open. He's really inconsistent from there. And, Sarr and Anthony Davis they are theoretical spacers. But they also teams, you need some more spacing than like Coulibaly out there. And I think teams are going to respect Dybantsa as a 3-point shooter, but he also kind of has to prove it. So I think I would just go with Keyshawn George and not think about it too much.
Yeah, we probably don't need to do too much deep analysis of who's going to be the 6th man for the Washington Wizards, but we're entering a new era of Wizards basketball. The pick is in, we are told now, for Utah at number 2. So like we said, the betting odds are off the board at the major books for the ensuing 3 or 4 picks. I'm seeing number 6 pick is the highest that you could bet on right now. We will monitor the prediction markets, however. Polymarket right now is Darryn Peterson, 99% chance to be the number 2 overall pick. So we will see momentarily if that is indeed the case. Thoughts on the all white suit look from Cam Boozer?
It's bold. Some people can pull it off.
Yeah.
I think in my mind, I would love to be able to pull it off. I don't think I could. So more power to you if you're going for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've thought a lot about like what I would wear if I were to ever be drafted. Probably not something I'm going to have to worry about. We have the Jazz selection. All right. There it is. Darryn Peterson, officially the selection at number 2. So, yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about what that starting lineup is going to look like. I mean, it's kind of a supercharged version of the Wizards. Now, I'm very curious. I know you said this could be, 50-win upside type of team. I think if the Jazz were in the East, I would be really, really intrigued as far as what this looks like in year one. But we're likely looking at now Keyonte George, Darryn Peterson, Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson. For now, Walker Kessler. We'll see what happens there. So you're bringing Ace Bailey off the bench. You're bringing Isaiah Collier off the bench. Bryce Sensabaugh goes from like your third or fourth option now to like your seventh or eighth man. I would like to see them do a little bit more with the front court. They brought in Nurkic last year. Obviously, that's not a long-term solution. Filipowski, to me, like, is he a keeper to you for the Jazz?
Yeah, I mean, I like Filipowski. I don't know, man. Look, they have a traditional center, obviously, in Walker Kessler. And then you can play Jaren Jackson at the 5. Like, there might be games where Triple J is closing at the 5, and then you have, like, Markkanen out there. They have an interesting sort of versatile, like, multi-look front court. Look, I really like this team. Some of this, like, when I talk about, like, 50-win upside, some of this relies on, like, was the Keyonte George leap real, and or can he take another leap? How good will Ace Bailey be in year 2? Like, he had some pretty encouraging performances at the end of the year. I'm not really a Cody Williams guy. He had some games. Bryce Sensabaugh is a 3-point shooter. Like, I think they have all of the play style tools and interesting young players necessary to be really good, and Peterson only adds to that.
Yeah, if I'm Utah, I'm totally fine with this pick. I mean, it is 2 years in a row now where, it was a little bit more aggressive with Ace Bailey than it was with Peterson. But, prospects, to put it lightly, implying that they would maybe not want to play in Utah. But look, I think it ended up working out fine, right? We didn't really hear a peep out of Ace Bailey once he actually got to Utah, right? Like, we had all that smoke before the draft. They took him anyway. And at least I did not see anything, about him ending up unhappy. And the whole goal, I think, for Ace Bailey was to get to a spot where he could play right away in year one, which obviously ended up happening, especially over the second half of the season. But yeah, all of a sudden now he's basically your sixth man. I'm looking at the odds right now for the Western Conference to win the West. So the Utah Jazz, 120-1. I mean, they're almost on their own tier. They're well behind teams like Portland and Phoenix and Dallas. They're ahead of New Orleans. Memphis and Sacramento are just way back, 300, 700 to 1. But the odds would tell you, as of right now, that the Utah Jazz would be the 12th best team in the Western Conference.
I don't know if that feels right to me.
I don't
so,
think
like,
so
who's immediately above them?
I'm going to say the Spurs. I'm going to say
no. I mean, like based on the odds, who is like,
like, who comes to mind? The team immediately above them is the Mavs at 70-1. So that's a big gap. I mean, we're talking 70-1 to 120-1.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Flagg is the best player on those two teams. And they have Kyrie Irving as well. Yeah. But I don't know. I think the appeal with this Jazz team is they're just really complete across the board. Like, they have a really good starting 5. They go 6 or 7 deep. Yeah. But the thing is, a huge portion of this does rely on Darryn Peterson being like good, like right away, right? Like 15, 20 points a game, efficient, for that to work out. But look, man, Triple J, Walker Kessler, Markkanen, Keyonte George, like, these good team.
Very fun team, if nothing else. And look, I think these odds to win the conference could be a little bit skewed sometimes too, because you're factoring in like playoff experience and things of that nature. I would love to see, some early playoff odds. Like, well, Jazz would still be plus money very clearly, but like, are we sure that the Suns should be 60-1 and the Jazz should be 120-1? Like, to me, there's not nearly that big of a gap between those two. I think the Jazz could be a better team than the Suns next year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think. Well, look. It seems like Memphis is almost guaranteed to draft Cameron Boozer. I don't know. I don't know what else would happen. Pick is in. Silver hasn't announced it, but look, this Memphis team with Boozer, I think Boozer's a great fit for Memphis for what they want to do. They immediately become like a team out of the 1980s, with Zach Edey and Cam Boozer in the front court. Obviously there's kind of like I don't even know if you want to call it a shadow or a dark cloud around the organization with like what's going on with John Morant. Are they going to deal him? It seems like they probably will if they can find a suitor. But just in terms of like a Memphis team that's looking for a new direction, obviously being able to get, Cam Boozer, someone was going to fall in your lap. And it happened to be Cam Boozer.
Yeah, again, pick is not officially in. Everything is pointing toward Cam Boozer being the selection. Like, I mean, what are we looking at for like a win ceiling to you this season? Assuming we plug Boozer in, I mean, how much of that depends on the health of Zach Edey? If you're sending out John Morant, you're probably not getting anything back, right? So like, I like the fit for Boozer. I would like to think Edey could stay healthy. Memphis is always a team that somehow, gets the most out of these, these dudes that it feels like other teams would not get anything out of. But I also think on paper, this still is the 13th or 14th best team in the West.
Yeah, I mean, they had in terms of their health, obviously, it was not a great season. They were also punting a lot of the year. They played, if I'm looking at this right, they played 33 players last year. Pretty impressive. Obviously, Jaren Jackson's gone. Yeah, to me, this still really feels like it's going to be, I would be shocked if they made the play-in. Yeah. I mean, maybe they can make the back half of the play-in if Boozer is like really good and John Morant has some miraculous turnaround and has a really good season and buys in. Like, I like a lot of their pieces. Cedric Coward, that dude is good. Cam Spencer, I really like, but I'm not expecting a lot necessarily out of them next year.
We have the official pick. It is indeed Cam Boozer. So we did not jump the gun on that one. If we're talking early fantasy here, because we do want to mix in some fantasy analysis, Alex. I think we're going to see Darryn Peterson likely a little bit overdrafted. I think he's going to be a nice points league guy. We'll see, where the passing stands at the NBA level. I don't know that they're going to ask him to do a ton. I think you could kind of ask him to play the same role that he did last year. He was a decent steals producer at the college level, 1.4 steals per game in 29 minutes, dealing with some very weird rotational patterns. I think the 3-point volume is going to have to be there. He should be a pretty good free throw shooter. It's about 83% last year on high volume. Rebounded his position at the college level. He is bigger, by the way, than he looks. Like, I feel like he kind of looks small out there. He looks a little bit slight, but measured 6'4.5", I think, without shoes. They'll probably list him at 6'6". I mean, I would say early projected stat line, maybe 14 to 17 points per game, 3 or 4 rebounds, 1 to 2 assists. If he can get to 1 steal, that's great. But I think in category leagues, you're mostly just looking at the points and threes.
Yes. I think there's some really interesting stuff. Like, might he play backup point guard? Like, is Isaiah Collier might barely play next year. If they want to throw Isaiah Collier, or if they want to throw Peterson as like a backup point guard, I think that might make a lot of sense for him. Run him with the bench unit a lot where he can show that off. But yeah, I mean, he is not they have a lot of other usage guys. Keontae George was fantastic last year. Markkanen's going to get his 20 points a game. Jaren Jackson's looking to get close to 20 points a game. Kessler does a lot of dribble handoff stuff.
Yeah.
I think the system that Will Hardy has, which is a system that has basically allowed Lauri Markkanen to flourish, except 2 years ago when he was just horrible, is a system that is a lot of off-ball moving and guys coming off curls and read and react and stuff. And that's a lot of what Peterson can do and what he's strong at. But yeah, I mean, if you and I both know the biggest drivers of fantasy value are minutes and usage. And this is not a team where they need to play Darryn Peterson 35 minutes a game and give him 30 usage. So he could end up overdrafted. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really remember a situation like this where both the number 1 and number 2 overall picks, who are players that we really like these aren't developmental pieces. They're not these unknown guys coming over from Europe where you just don't even know what to project. They're both going to two of the worst teams in the NBA, and both of those teams are like kind of loaded from a fantasy perspective. Like almost always you could just kind of plug and play. Like, all right, the number 1, number 2 pick, they'll probably be, I don't know, somewhere between pick on the high end 35 to 50, maybe more normally 70 to 100. Like I think we're going to see both of these guys probably a little bit overdrafted, Dybantsa included. Now Boozer, from a fantasy perspective, I am extremely interested in.
I agree. He has a profile that should translate well to fantasy.
Yeah.
I think it's a little like Cooper Flag. They are different players, but like Boozer can basically do everything. Like there are questions about his athleticism at the NBA level and whether or not he's going to be like a knockdown 3-point shooter, and what position does he play defensively. I get all those questions, and those are fair. But if we're talking fantasy basketball and just the amount of usage he might get, again, if they keep Morant, Boozer's the number 2 option. If they move off of Ja Morant, there's a pretty good chance Cam Boozer is the straight up number 1 option and running this Memphis Grizzlies team.
Yeah, I have a lot of interest in some of these pieces for Memphis. I think I'm gonna have a lot of Cedric Coward. I think with Edey, not the type of player I typically draft just because of the injury history, but I think we know the implied upside if that hits. My question would be, is Cam Boozer the type of player where you would say, all right, we want you to be a number 1 option right away? It's like the more fun scenario, because he's so polished to me, would be him going to one of the situations we just talked about, like in Washington or Utah, where you could just be a part of a winning team right away. Like I don't worry about him being one of those guys who's like poisoned by losing. I think he's got a really good head on his shoulders. I think he's been a winner throughout his career, including in college. So like that's not really the implication. But is Cam Boozer a hey, go get us a bucket guy at the NBA level? Because I was a little lower on him because of how many games I watched at Duke where it was just put the head down, bully in, and it worked over and over and over. It worked, but you just don't see that at the NBA level.
No, I mean, you look up his play style chart, and 31% is post ups. Right. It's just not going to happen, especially when you have Edey in there as well. I think they'll play well together, but that's a little bit of a different conversation than what you're asking.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's good to get him the reps. That's my opinion on a lot of these young guys, which is like, does this guy necessarily project as like a top 5 player in the NBA? No, but like you want to get him the reps and act like he's that. So, he gets that experience and he can always scale down. Like the way I view Boozer, and I think the way, people view him as like the high floor prospect, is I don't think Boozer necessarily has the upside to be a top 10 player in the NBA, but it's possible he will be the best one of the best number 2 options ever. He's kind of, to me, he feels like a Scottie Pippen and they still need to find a Michael Jordan to pair with him.
Yeah, I'm finding the Michael Jordan tends to be a little bit more difficult. It could be Cedric Coward, could be Jalen Wells. We'll see. It could be waiting in the weeds in Memphis. But no, I agree with you. I mean, Kevin Love is the comp that I've kind of clung to, throughout his college season. Especially reminded me of early Kevin Love, UCLA, Kevin Love, Timberwolves, Kevin Love, before they kind of turned him into a spread in space type of guy. Number 4 pick is officially in. It is indeed Caleb Wilson. We are full chalk so far. Yeah. All of the heavy betting favorites in order. So we talked a little bit about Wilson off the top. Again, if you're kind of just getting into the draft, if you have not, watched a ton of college basketball, you're seeing it on the screen right now. If you're watching the draft, the finishing ability, the explosiveness, the transition, ability to get it and go, even though he's not really, I wouldn't say like an impressive dribbler, you wouldn't say he has a great handle, just the power with which he's able to kind of get down court and finish. I remember thinking like the first time I watched him early in the season, I'm like, this is kind of what it would have looked like if LeBron played college, just in terms of the size and the athleticism. Obviously LeBron, a much better playmaker. It's the finishing stuff, like some of the breakaway dunks is like, I don't think I've seen that at the college level since Zion Williamson, at least not from a high major player with that kind of size.
No, a huge part of what you look for, when you're looking at top level NBA talent is like, is this guy making moves against college players that makes the guys around him seem like they are not even close to his skill level? And Wilson does that athletically, where he's in transition and he gets downhill and he just looks like he's playing, against like 8th graders or something sometimes. So I think I think I feel very similarly about Wilson as a lot of other people, which is just like, is the three ball going to come? Is he going to be like a usage guy in the NBA? He was like kind of running the team from the high post at North Carolina, which is like, how much he's going to be doing that in the NBA.
Yeah.
But look, this is a guy where it's like, if he can figure that stuff out and he can tighten the ball handling, he's going to be good on defense. I think he needs to focus a little bit more on that end. Like, he's got tools and athleticism for it, but I think you have to be really excited if you're Chicago. And look, at the very least, this Bulls team is going to be fast and they're going to be fun. You know, they're going to be in transition. Josh Giddey throwing lobs to him and Buzelis. Claxton's there now as a center. So really fun team that they got going in Chicago.
Yeah, not something we've been able to say too often over the last decade or so. I mean, he's definitely the most fun Bulls draft pick in a while. I know you were a big Buzelis guy. He's a fun player.
Yeah.
Caleb Wilson, to me, is on a completely different level. In terms of year one, impact on winning, and obviously Chicago went out and literally stole Nick Claxton away. I don't even think they gave anything up. It was just like they're getting Nick Claxton as part of this deal. Is he a guy who, because we focus so much on the physical traits, like I'll just ask you from a fantasy perspective, because that's probably the best way to look at it. Like, would you take Caleb Wilson at pick 115?
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, because he has, like, he's a little bit like Buzelis to me. These guys are not like dissimilar players.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's going to get out of position blocks and steals. Well, it's not really out of position steals, but he's going to have like weak side, huge block opportunities. He's going to be pushing in transition. It kind of, his field goal percentage might depend on like how much they want him creating and stuff like that. But he's going to get a lot of easy dunks from like Josh Giddey. He has like fringe potential to be the number 2 option on this team behind Giddey. I don't know if I would I don't know if that would be true number 2 guy usage, because as far as I know, they still have Trey Jones and Colin Sexton. I don't know what they're doing with that. But look, he's going to be, I think, a pretty good fantasy player, especially like a multi-category guy. Could grab a lot of boards too.
Yeah, I would say the rebounds and the defensive stats are what I would count on most. I think somewhere in the realm of 9 to 13 points per game could be realistic. Maybe I'm underrating that. He did get to the line a ton at the college level, like almost 10 free throw attempts per 40. And part of that is just sheer force at the rim, and, converted at about a 71% clip, which is not great, but it's not a disaster, right? That's something to look at when you're looking at these dudes who need to develop a jump shot. It's like, all right, are they catastrophic at the line? I would like to see that number be a little bit higher, to be honest. I think 77, 78, then you start thinking, okay, that could translate into the jumper, but it's not terrible. We're not talking about a Hassan Whiteside, Andre Drummond level situation. As far as Claxton goes, by the way, this is a good avenue to talk about that. I love this move by the Bulls. I know Claxton is on his second contract, but it's like, where else is that money going if you're Chicago? I firmly buy into this idea that he just kind of lost interest in Brooklyn. It's like, all right, we're going on year 2 of not trying to win any games. I'm playing with a bunch of random dudes. I think there's another level he could go up. I think we were a lot higher on Claxton like a year and a half ago. And, it's not like he's going to a top 3 contender in the Eastern Conference, but I will be very high on Claxton. I'm wondering if there will be an early discount on him before ADP catches up.
I think Claxton, it's funny, a lot of these guys, like, they go to a bad situation and in theory they can have their value boosted. I think being in a bad situation made Claxton seem worse than he is.
Yeah.
Because they did not have reliable point guard play. And Claxton is like, he's mostly a lob dunk guy. Like, he can do some other stuff. He can push in transition. Like, he's a good athlete. He can dribble a little bit. But like, there were plenty of points throughout his Nets tenure where they would like give him the ball at like the high post or the 3-point line. And they're like, do something, Nick Claxton. Yeah. It's like, that's not who he is. That's not even remotely close to anything. They were trying to tap his upside and it's just not there. So I think having a true point guard like Giddey, playing in an up-tempo system, I think he's actually going to look a lot better than he did in Brooklyn. I think it's a good fit.
The pick is in at number 5. The LA Clippers, seemed like they were fielding offers. Didn't seem like anything was going to really materialize there. Keaton Wagler from Illinois officially the pick. I was tracking that one very closely, Alex. He was plus 240 on Sunday to go number 5 overall, shortened up to minus 135 earlier today. So that is your selection for the LA Clippers. Is it fair to call him one of the more polarizing prospects in the draft? Are we just getting into the range where all these guards are going to be polarizing?
Yes. I am really conflicted about Wagler. Like, I think
too.
a lot of other people are. I think it's easy to make a lot of like, okay, he's not a great athlete, and he did not make a dunk last year. He was not like a super highly recruited prospect coming into college. But look, like, you watch him and he's just like, he'll sometimes blow by guys, or he'll bump into them and hit a step back, and he's creating like this crazy amount of space despite not being a great athlete. So like, clearly his feel is fantastic. Obviously he's a good 3-point shooter, but something about it just like does not. It's just like, it's a lot of tough shots in an offense that had NBA spacing. And so, I don't think he'll be a bust because I think he's a smart player, but I feel like early on, maybe there are some struggles for Wagler against like real high level NBA defenders.
Yeah, no question. I think if there is a player in this draft where you could picture a front office being scared to draft and scared not to draft, it would be Wagler. And really, I think it's still like the Steph Curry effect. And I think this is like the latest iteration of when we used to compare like shooting guard prospects to Michael Jordan in the early 2000s, or these big athletic wings to LeBron, and it was like, well, you could see it a little bit. There's a little bit of Steph to Wagler, no question, with just some of the shots he makes where you did a good job laying it out. Like, you just can't really explain how it works, but it does. And I think, now we've watched Curry for 15 years. It's like, yeah, we get what he's doing. But when he came out, I think there was a lot of that too, where it's like, how is this guy? He's not really that fast. At least the measuring tells us he's not big, but there's just something innate about him that allows him to do this. And I think Wagler does have a little bit of that. You see some of the SGA comps just in terms of the ability to use the body to kind of bump off guys to create space. So I think that pick in some ways is influenced by seeing it work for other players. Now, it's rare, and I think it's worth an upside shot, because I don't necessarily think there's like a true lock behind him if you're looking at Mikel Brown or Acuff or Flemings or Burries, whoever it is. But I think Wagler, to me, I don't see him just being an average NBA player. I think it's going to go pretty well, or it might go really poorly.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a game against Iowa.
Okay.
And if you did not tell anybody what was going on in that game, or they didn't know anything about college basketball, they would have been like, oh yeah, Bennett Stirtz is like, this is the guy.
He's the guy.
But one thing about Wagler is like, okay, so, like you mentioned the Curry comp, because Wagler can shoot the 3 and everything. But for a lot of that game, and admittedly, like, I didn't watch a lot of other full games of him, like, he's just kind of standing around. And like, there would be times where like he would want the ball and he would kind of just like walk and like stick his arm out, and like there's no urgency at all off the ball. Like, you watch some of these other guys, Stirtz is probably, a bad example, because that guy is like literally all of Iowa and running around the entire game. It's unbelievable. But there are other guys who are like coming off of curls, like hot, demanding the ball, finding the angles. And Wagler, to me, he plays a little lazier than I thought he would at times. But look, if he's going to make 40% of his threes and he's got some craft to his game, again, I think you said it really well, which is like, scared to draft him, scared not to draft him.
Yeah. And look, I would be more scared not to draft him than to draft him. So I agree with the LA Clippers on this pick. Updated return, by the way, on the Ivica Zubac trade. So Pacers get Zubac. They also got Kobe Brown in that deal. We can't forget. The Clippers get Wagler, Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson. They still have that 2029 first, which is unprotected, and a second rounder in 2028. So it could have been worse. If the Clippers were picking any higher than 5, I think we would rule that as a potential disaster. And I love Zubac, but there we have it. Keaton Wagler, your number 5 overall pick. Pick is in for the Brooklyn Nets. I have not seen on Twitter yet who that pick will be. Should get the announcement very shortly here. Oh, wait, there it is. Jeff Goodman says Brooklyn Nets taking Mikel Brown at number 6.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of like, is this a potential Acuff spot?
Yeah.
But the Kings really like Acuff. I expect the Kings to draft Acuff
Yeah.
next. Yeah, Mikel Brown. Look, that's a guy you watch and you're like, this is an NBA level talent. I think, and he was doing a lot of that while like recovering from a back injury. There were some issues there.
Right.
But yeah, I think the knock on him right now is like there's some inconsistency and there are some like he's doing some heat check and some of these passes are like not he doesn't seem worried about committing a turnover as much as he should be.
Yes.
There was one particular game I watched. I can't remember who he was against now, but the team was down and they started trapping and Brown threw like 2 passes completely into the stands at the other side of the court. Like some of the worst passes you'll ever see from like an NBA level player being trapped near half court. But look, he can hit the 3. He's a great passer. I just very like he just looks like an NBA player when you watch him.
Yep.
It's hard to put a pin in it more than that.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. Kind of a unique looking jump shot too, like kicks both feet out. Almost kind of more of an old school shot. The range obviously is really appealing. Not afraid to fire from anywhere, either off the dribble or off the catch. I don't mind this at all from a talent grab perspective.
Yeah.
If you're Brooklyn, I think we would be saying a lot of the same things if they had just taken Darius Acuff. Whereas, had they gone with someone like Burries, who I really like, by the way, and I think has a chance to be, really, really good, but maybe not quite as high of a ceiling. And, Brooklyn had all those picks last year. It's too early to tell, I think, on most of those guys, but you don't necessarily see superstar scoring upside in any of those players. And at least in Mikel Brown, you're getting a completely different type of young body in the door. We do need to talk about what this Nets roster looks like, by the way. The Michael Porter Jr., Julius Randle, and now Mikel Brown triumvirate.
Yeah.
We are going to see things from a shot selection perspective that we've maybe never seen before at the NBA level.
Yeah, I saw some news that Randle is excited to be a Brooklyn Net, wants to stay.
I saw that too. Like, I bet he is.
Yeah, man. It's just you had your chance to be. Like he kind of ran the gamut. Like he was an interesting young prospect, and then he got a chance to be an All NBA player and finished like 5th in MVP for New York that one season. And then he was asked to be part of a championship team, and they hated him. And now he gets to go back to like chucking shots. So happy for Randle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and look, I mean, there was some like Nate Ament buzz because the Nets have so many guards, but like to me, that never felt real because I'm like, how would you realistically justify passing on one of these guards when it's like, well, we got to make sure Yegor Joman gets his touches, or like, what if we affect, Ben Saraf's upside? It's like, you get real.
How does this affect Ochai Agbaji's legacy? Yeah, no, Brooklyn to me is still a blank slate. Like there is, I would say still not a single player on the roster where I would say like, for sure, this dude is going to be on the team 3 years from now, or has to be on the team 3 years from now. I hope by the end of next season we'll feel differently, but no, you cannot let that affect your drafting whatsoever. Where does Brooklyn rank for you in the Eastern Conference? Well, look, and I'm nothing against the Brooklyn Nets. The odds would tell you they're on their own tier right now with the Bulls, both 500-1 to win the East. I like what Chicago has going on more than I do Brooklyn. It depends, I guess, how much they're going to lean into the Randle MPJ thing. Like are these guys, are they going to play 75 games if they're healthy? Are they going to play 34 minutes a night? Like you're no longer really incentivized to do what the Nets were doing last year.
Brooklyn has more. I think they have more points per game on their team right now. Between Randall Porter and Mikel Brown, I think Chicago is probably a more. I mean, they're better defensively. Josh Giddey leading the team. That's going to result in like generally good offense. Gut feeling, I want to say Chicago is better, but again, Brooklyn might just kind of like, force their way winning some games like 125 to 124 with just like making tough shots. It might be really annoying.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be horrible, to be clear. But like,
they could force their way to some wins, like over the Bulls, over,
yes, that's what I
over
mean.
the Grizzlies, over perhaps the Pelicans. Yeah, no, the shot making, or the shot taking, I should say, is going to be, it's going to be unbelievable, man. I mean, I tweeted this last time, and it's like the contested mid range version of Steph and Clay. It's like you put the two dudes together in MPJ and Randall. So the expectation now is that we're going to see Acuff go to the Kings at 7. The rare draft where it feels like every team has just gotten their guy so far. And again, Acuff could have gone 5, could have gone 6. It wouldn't have been shocking. I love Darius Acuff. He's my favorite, I think, of these 3 guards. Okay. He's such a Sacramento King.
Yeah, and the perfect guy to draft if you are not worried about winning now and don't necessarily care about defense.
Yeah. It is indeed Acuff, by the way. We have the official pick. We're going with some red lens sunglasses for Darius Acuff. We like to see that.
It worked for him.
So how would you order? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but you've been working on a big board. How did you have Wagler, Acuff, and Brown ranked?
I would have probably went with Brown first. Acuff and Wagler is tough. I probably, to my own detriment, I would have had Acuff over Wagler.
Okay.
And I just, the thing about Acuff, like Acuff is such a bad, I guess my question about Acuff is like, how high do you think Acuff could have gone if he was an average defender?
I don't know if he was cracking the top 4. There was a brief moment, I think it was at the end of the college season, kind of into the SEC tournament, when he was really entering the sphere of public knowledge, where, I was on VSiN and being asked, like, should we be betting Acuff to be the number 1 pick? And I'm like, I can't quite see it. I will say with Acuff, like, how much of the defense thing is just a lack of effort? Like, that seems to be 90% of it for me. Like, there's no reason he should be this bad. I'm not saying he's going to be a great defender or even a good defender at the NBA level, but like there's like an obvious reason. Even if Trae Young tried as hard as he could, he's just not going to be a good defender, right? He's going to get pushed around. He's going to get switched onto. He's too small. He doesn't have length. Like, Acuff doesn't necessarily have that problem. He's not super tall. He is strong enough. He's quick enough. He's athletic enough that he should not, like, most of the defensive lapses that you saw from him were just like falling asleep or not trying. It wasn't him getting bullied.
He is not. He is a horrible off-ball defender. But when you watch him play, if his man has the ball and there's not like a lot happening necessarily, I think he actually like locks in one-on-one and cares a lot about stopping the guy in front of him who has the ball in ISO situations. Now, you start bringing over a pick, that guy throws the ball, there's some off-ball action, guys get switched. I think he just loses it. Like, I think he just kind of loses where guys are on the court and makes some bizarre sort of plays. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking like, this is the right kind of gamble for the Sacramento Kings. Like, because this is Darius Acuff, like we were alluding to, if he was an average defender, if he locks in on that side of the floor, can be just as good as almost anybody in this draft.
Yeah, I look, when I say he's a perfect Sacramento King, I don't mean that as a detriment to him necessarily. It's a classic Kings pick. I feel worse about him panning out because he's going to the Kings. From an entertainment perspective, I love this. I had Acuff ahead of Mikel Brown. I would go Wagler, Acuff, and Brown in that order. Wagler versus Acuff to me is a total toss up. We have real opportunity fantasy wise here in year 1. Now, I think this is the classic. Depends on your league settings. I think in points leagues, we have a lot to look forward to. I worry a lot about what the field goal percentage is going to look like for Acuff. We'll see where the assist numbers come in. I mean, I don't even know if we can evaluate this Kings roster confidently right now as far as what it looks like now versus what it'll look like in October.
Rumor was that DeRozan's going to be waived and stretched.
Yeah.
So he might be off the team. I don't know what they're doing with Levine. The Acuff Levine backcourt's. I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, we're hitting a lot of overs.
I mean, it's the defense version of Randall and MPJ.
It is. I mean, as it stands right now, you have Acuff and Levine in your backcourt and Sabonis protecting the rim. I mean, these games are, like, I'm telling you right now, over under on some of these games, 250.5 maybe, if things break right.
Crazy.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, even if they don't move on from Levine, there's a really good chance Acuff he is the number one option in this team, I think, for all intents and purposes, or should be. And I think actually Sabonis and him kind of makes sense, like, because he's not a pure point guard necessarily. It's kind of like you do watch him play, and there is some like off ball action, and he's coming off of curls. He's a little like Darryn Peterson in that way, where it's like he's kind of branded as like, okay, this guy can play point guard, but it's more of like he's a lead guard who is like competent enough at passing to get 5-6 assists.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just like it for the Kings. This is the right gamble. He put butts in seats. That matters for bad teams. Let's go.
Yeah, I think you're doing a complete reboot. It's kind of like we talked about with Brooklyn, where it's like how many guys are keepers on this roster. I'm not a big Keegan Murray guy. The Kings seem to be a little bit higher on him than at least I am, and maybe the rest of the world is. But I don't know. I know he's had some injuries, but I haven't really seen a ton of progression there. I mean, the DeRozan thing, I feel like he's going to end up in Miami, right? If they do waive and stretch him, that feels like just an obvious, Heat pick him up for the minimum.
If I was the Heat, I'd rather have LaVine because I think they need spacing. But
LaVine's also making like $50 million this year, isn't he?
It's
a player option. Yeah,
you take DeRozan if he's free. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like if DeRozan wants to play in Miami and get a tan and like do whatever, he can come to Miami and do that. But yeah, I mean, Miami needs to make a move to get some more reliable scoring, I think, on that team. They have potential to be elite defensively. Like if they're like the second best defense in the NBA or something, I'd be like, I guess. I mean, you have Adebayo, Wiggins, Giannis, Davion Mitchell. Like they're going to be really good there.
All right, so we're on to the number 8 pick. That means the Atlanta Hawks are on the clock. Pick is in, currently on commercial for the broadcast.
I think it opens up here a lot. This is like where the draft really begins, I think, like in earnest.
Yeah, I think most people would have said 5. It's been, chalk picks at 5, 6, and 7. I have no idea where we could go here. It could be Brayden Burries. I think this could be maybe as high as Nate Ament could go. We could start to be into some of the Michigan guy territory. Kingston Flemings, obviously, still on the board. We will see, but yeah, still on commercial, so should have that pick momentarily. Let's back up and talk a little bit about Wagler in terms of the fit with the Clippers, just roster wise, fantasy wise. I have no idea if Kawhi is going to be on this roster. We will see. I think if I was the Clippers, I would really consider selling high on Kawhi Leonard. I think it's in some ways a gift that, what is Kawhi, 34 now, that you have an opportunity to sell high on Kawhi at this age.
Yes. I mean, I don't think if I was them, I don't think I would have drafted for fit.
No,
I know they acquire Garland and he's entering his prime, and you have Kawhi and all that stuff. Kawhi could play 12 games next year and it wouldn't surprise anybody. Like, it's just the history of him at this point. Yeah, I think I assume Wagler's going to start at the 2. We'll see, but I don't think this team will be particularly good. I mean, Wagler should step in as the number 3 option on this team if they don't move Kawhi.
Yeah, the decision between Wagler and Chris Dunn, I think, is really interesting. Like, could not be more opposite players in a lot of ways. And it's like, really? Can you get away with a Garland Wagler defensive backcourt? We will see. We'll have to table that for now, because the number 8 pick is officially in. Kingston Flemings is your selection to the Atlanta Hawks. This, of course, was the New Orleans Pelicans pick as part of the Derek Queen trade up last season. So Flemings, I actually thought there was a chance that he could fall out of the top 10. I'm glad that is not the case. I mean, we were talking about Flemings maybe as high as like number 4, I would say, midway through the college season. Then it became pretty clear Caleb Wilson had entered that discussion. But I think for a while there, Kingston Flemings was penciled in at number 5. And then, Acuff and Wagler have their ascents toward the end of the year. Didn't measure all that well at the combine. He's got short arms, but definitely a dog. I will say that. He's got some dog in him. A little bit rigid as far as how he moves. The comp that I gave him a while back was it's a little Darren Williams-y to me. Especially if you watch Illinois, Darren Williams, like, a little bit of a bigger body, even though, Flemings is fairly low in terms of weight. Like, he looks pretty built. He's very shifty side to side. He elevates on the jumper. Didn't have an overly strong finish to the season at Houston. But I think if you backed up to mid-January and said, hey, you're the Atlanta Hawks, you're going to be able to get Kingston Flemings at 8, that would have felt like a huge win.
Yes. And I'm a Bucks fan. I have a lot of stock in the number 10 and 13 picks. This is upsetting to me. I was hoping some of these guards would fall.
Yeah.
We're praying for big men. But I will say, I like Flemings a lot. Yes, I think the combine hurt his stock because he ended up with the same measurements as Reed Shepherd.
Right.
And that's not what you love to see, because we just saw Reed Shepherd look like he just looked really small in the playoffs and was not able to get a shot off, was barely even to make some passes because they would kind of double him and just people would throw their arms up and he couldn't throw over anybody. But Flemings, and I know Shepherd tested pretty well in terms of an athlete. Like, he jumps really high and all that stuff. Flemings is a way better functional athlete than Reed Shepherd. It's not close to me. And I think Flemings is a more like functional, good defender. In terms of the fit with Atlanta, I like it because Dyson Daniels is not like a true point guard. He's like a wing who defends. He's not really a usage guy. Alexander Walker is, he shoots threes. He's kind of like a wing.
Right.
He's not like an advantage creator. So I like getting a kind of a more traditional point guard here with Kingston Flemings, even if like his 3-pointer is a little bit of a question. He likes the mid-ranger, but they can space out with a Kongwu who can hit threes. But yeah, just an exciting, fun player who I think can be really good. They're very decisive with the ball too.
Yeah.
I watched BYU Houston, awesome game.
And
they were like doubling Flemings the entire game, and he looked amazing being doubled, which is like kind of what you want to see. Like, he was decisive with the ball, moving off the ball, making crisp passes, was still able to break free a little bit. I like him.
I think we have our first potential pick tipping here from Shams, who just tweeted, I have a feeling new Dallas Mavericks coach Dusty May will be bringing a Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I could have tweeted that. Let's be real. I could have tweeted that.
Yeah, I love there was, I think this shifted like 2018 or 2019 draft, I want to say it was, where they're like, all right, well, you can't tip the picks. But then he started like finding new ways to word everything. And it was like a riddle that you had to solve to figure out who it would be. I think that's the lane that we're getting in now with Shams. As far as Flemings goes, I mean, one thing to note is that he played in like the most college-y system possible in Houston, right? And it's like some of those games are just played in the mud. Houston, all they want to do is defend. They want to win every game, 59 to 51. And I do wonder if we see Kingston Flemings really benefit from just the openness of the NBA game. I think it could be one of those guys who just kind of looks different at the college level than he does at the NBA level. A lot of the straight up just per game numbers aren't crazy impressive. He's playing 32 minutes a game. All right, 16, 5 and 4. That's good. But, he's in a super slow paced system. It's a upperclassman heavy team in Houston. So I think there's upside here. I kind of like what Atlanta now has, where, they bring back CJ McCollum. You mentioned Alexander Walker, who obviously took a huge leap, and, Dyson Daniels, you don't necessarily want him handling the ball, but you have 4 options, and really 3, who are very different players. You have kind of the veteran score first guy in McCollum. You have the 3-point shooter gunner type in Alexander Walker, who was a hell of a lot more efficient last year. And then, like you said, the more traditional point guard in Kingston Fleming. So a lot of different backcourt looks now on the table for Atlanta.
This is a fun team. We've been saying that about Atlanta for like half a decade though. So they got exposed a little bit in the playoffs. Leaning on McCollum as much as they did was not good. Jalen Johnson needed to do a little bit more. Wow. But this is a fun, versatile team that I think will win games. And, a lot of these guys are, like, obviously Flemings is undersized, but he still competes really hard on defense. There's no, like, questions about how much he wants to play defense. And, obviously Daniels is that guy, and Okongwu is a pretty good rim protector and a switchable guy for how, he's 6'9". So they have all the pieces they need. They've done a really good job post Trae Young of continuing to build both a young team and a competitive team.
Pick is in for the Dallas Mavericks at number 9. I do want to return to this Hawks conversation, though, because I think they could be a really interesting Jaylen Brown team. Well, we'll have to hit that later. We do indeed have a Michigan Wolverine going to join Dusty May in Dallas. It is not Yaxel Lendeborg. It is not Aday Mara. It is indeed Morez Johnson Jr., the number 9 pick to Dallas.
Another guy I wanted on the Milwaukee Bucks, unfortunately. Yep. Yeah, man. When you see Morez Johnson out there, you watch these Michigan games, and he will switch on to somebody, and that person will immediately be like, yeah, I don't really want to, I don't want the basketball anymore. They just like give up the basketball. He's like chest to chest with guys up in them. You can't go through him. Real great potential. Like, he shot really well at the combine. Small sample during the college season in terms of his 3-pointer, but just kind of like a quintessential guy with like switch potential 1 through 5 who can maybe hit some threes and is a smart player. This is a great pick. Morez Johnson's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like Dallas has a history of, kind of picking these guys who, the stats do not jump off the page whatsoever. I think Derek Lively was another one of those guys, although he was like the number 1 overall recruit heading into that Duke season. And, I think just kind of played a little bit different style at the college level than he did in high school. But yeah, just adding contributors, right? I love this pick for Dallas. So, they have some things to figure out in that front court as far as, okay, one, is Derek Lively going to be healthy? Is Daniel Gafford in any way a part of the future? What are we doing with PJ Washington? But you got Morez Johnson, who I think profiles more, I guess, as a true 4, will be asked to slide up to the 5. I think an ideal complement in a lot of ways to Cooper Flagg.
They're going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still a little forward heavy, but that's all right. Look, this team is going to be good. I think their upside's a little limited. Cooper Flagg was so impressive as a rookie. Year 2 leap into something like special is possible for Cooper Flagg. Kyrie Irving is going to be healthy. Obviously he's a great offensive player. And then just those 2 guys alone give you just like a floor. Lively can't stay healthy. I think he's really good. Gafford's worked for them. Then you add Morez Johnson. It's just like, this is going to be a really good team.
All right, so the entire draft has been building to this. Milwaukee owns 2 of the next 4 picks. They have 10, and then they got 13 from Miami yesterday. Who is number 1 on your wish list right now?
Look, Brayden Burries is available.
Brayden Burries is available.
I would take him.
Yeah,
I was talking to you. I tweeted it as well, but I'm just like, my ideal 1 and 2 for the Bucks was Brayden Burries and Morez Johnson. And I think you kind of lose out by losing Morez here, but you get bailed out a little bit by Brayden Burries being available.
Yeah, to me, this would be an obvious pick. There has been plenty of Nate Ament smoke with Milwaukee as well, depending on which reporters you actually believe. I think a lot of that was rooted in Brayden Burries likely not being available. I mean, Burries had been linked to Dallas, I thought, more than any other team. And maybe the Dusty May hiring, put that up in smoke. But yeah, I'm obviously Milwaukee is prepared for this scenario, but this is one that would be a no-brainer to me. And then, you see what's available at 13. You're still going to have a chance potentially at Cameron Carr, who I'm very interested in. I know you've looked at him in depth as well. I would be looking to take upside shots if I'm Milwaukee. We'll talk plenty about the Milwaukee Bucks future, but I think one thing they accomplished, whether you like the package or not, from Miami, is bringing back 4 players who all have trade value. Like none of those guys are a sunk asset or somebody that you'll have to flip and you just get, we got a 2nd round pick and some nobody. Like, there's interest in Jaime Jaquez. There are teams that want Khalil Ware. Obviously, there's interest in Hero. I mean, the Bucks fought to get Jonas in that trade instead of Davion Mitchell, which I thought was really interesting. I think that was shrewd by Milwaukee, and I think there are certainly iterations of that deal where they get Davion Mitchell and they try to win 38 games next season.
That would have been bad. Yeah, I think a lot of the Ament smoke was due to Jimmy Haslam having a lot of Tennessee connections, which upsets me because that just shouldn't be a factor. But look, I think the Heat package was the better offer in my opinion. Having 2 picks in this draft is huge. I mean, I can't remember who it was, maybe Chris Haynes, one of the insiders, when they broke this like 2 weeks ago, or we're talking about this more. The term that they used was like, the pick is the headline from Miami, not Tyler Hero.
Yeah.
And there's still some stuff like I do think all those guys are tradable. Like, I don't think Milwaukee is that committed to like Tyler Hero. I think like the homecoming to Wisconsin thing is super overrated. There are just as many Wisconsin basketball fans who are like, this guy snubbed us by going to Kentucky, and like we hate him now.
I know. I think that has been a national narrative of like, well, he is from Wisconsin, I'm like, actually the entire state is against this guy because he committed to Wisconsin and then decommitted and has just become, I think the type of personality that specifically the state of Wisconsin probably does not embrace. So I don't know. I mean, Milwaukee's in a tough spot because I think there is real fear. And I think this is a big part of the reason the Giannis process was as drawn out as it was. Like there is real fear of like, what is our identity now? Like, can we go from, the most fruitful era in modern Bucks history to just nothing? But I don't know. Like I wouldn't feel, would you feel that much better if it's like, all right, we got Jaylen Brown. Now let's build around him. No. But like you're on a 3-year clock with Jaylen Brown. You don't want to be giving him that next contract, in my opinion. You're not paying him the max that's going to take him to age 35. All right, there we have it. Brayden Burries.
We did it. Very happy about this. I mean, I think, and part of the reason I liked Burries was like, this is like, he maybe does not have the star upside that some of these other guards have. Like, I think there's certainly a case to make that like him and Flemings were sort of mocked in the same range. And there's probably a case that Flemings has more star upside, more explosive player, everything like that. Burries is the exact right type of guy you want if you're trying to like establish a culture of young players, I think. He competes really hard on defense. He is switchable. He can score from 3. I think he's faster than he gets credit for. Some of that might be because Arizona played kind of slow, and then they would get out in transition. You're like, oh my God, when Brayden Burries has the ball. But I'm not that worried about his efficiency. I know some people think it's like he might not be as good of a shooter as he was in college, but I think this is just a really good way to kind of jumpstart stuff in terms of your culture and getting a good guard who can play make.
Yeah, I think you summed it up well. I mean, I think Burries kind of got cast to me as like the safe option among all these guards. Maybe the lower ceiling option, higher floor, which if you're Milwaukee, I think in theory you want to be shooting for the moon, but you're also at the 10th pick, right? Like we're not talking about the Bucks picking at 4 here. So I'm totally fine with going on the best player available on my board. 39% from 3 a year ago on about 4.5 attempts per game. Was also playing on a loaded Arizona team. I mean, this was not an Acuff situation. This was not a Mikel Brown. Like, we're turning it over to you. Go shoot 29 times if you want. Like, Brayden Burries had to play within a very defined hierarchical system.
Yes. And, he is I do think he's a better athlete than he gets credit for. He tested for shooting guards. It depends. You want to go point guard or shooting guard. He's basically like 90th percentile lane agility at the combine. Yeah. Like, he's quick. And another thing, big. You mentioned the system at Arizona. You watch those games, there are 2 dudes just standing in the paint at all times. Like Burries, people be like, oh, Burries doesn't get to the rim enough. Look, man, pause the tape whenever he has the ball and see how many defenders are standing in front of him. He was not going to be able to get downhill. Totally a guy to me that I think will be freed up by NBA spacing and look a lot better than, the college system he was in.
I think anybody who's even played like rec basketball is nodding along. It's like, oh yeah, you got the 2 bigs out there. Like you're just not getting to the rim. You're getting up there. You're getting fouled by your own guy. Yeah, no, that's a great point by you. I mean, Arizona always has like a 7'2" white guy. They had Koa Pete last year, obviously. Yeah. I think that's a really good call. I think he's on that short list of guys who I think will look a lot different at the NBA level. And it didn't even get to 30 minutes per game last year. Was still playing somewhat of a limited role again on a loaded team. So a lot to like. I think this gives you, I wouldn't say quite a foundational piece if you're Milwaukee. You're not turning the franchise over necessarily to Brayden Burries, but I think an exciting player, no question about it. Like if the Bucks had taken Morez Johnson at 10, it's like, okay, that's great. You might not realize the true value of Morez Johnson, who to me is much more valuable to an already competitive team than he would be a team like Milwaukee. Whereas, I mean, there's going to be opportunity for Brayden Burries to grow, which I can't believe I'm saying, alongside Ryan Rollins, who to me is maybe like the one true keeper on this roster before they made that deal.
Yes. Yeah, no question. I have some Bucks fans in my life who are like, what about this Ousmane Dieng guy? Like, is this like we have to extend him? I'm like, we don't have to do anything with Ousmane Dieng.
Certainly don't.
Yeah, I think Ronzo's a keeper. I do think his defense is maybe a little overrated. At the same time, he was asked to do a lot at points for this Bucks team offensively, way more than probably anybody ever expected him to do at an NBA court. So, I think the combination of him and Burries is really interesting in the backcourt in terms of just like a general restart.
Yeah. I don't think Tyler Hero is going to play a game for the Milwaukee Bucks. We will see. I think
you got to trigger him before he gets hurt again.
Right. Well, I also think there's just enough of an appetite right now. Like the East in particular. Maybe we'll get into some Boston talk at some point. Like I'm not really sold on what the Celtics are right now. I think they have to trade Jaylen Brown, and they'll get a nice package for him. You know, maybe it is Trey Murphy and whatever else. Like that's a really nice fit in Boston, but I don't think it's likely that they will be better than they would have been with a fully healthy Tatum and the version of Jaylen Brown that we saw last year, or even a slightly diminished version if he's playing the full year alongside Tatum. Like I don't install Boston as a prohibited favorite by any means. I think the Knicks were the biggest winner of what we saw yesterday with Giannis, because I'm not really sold on Miami either. But there are enough teams that could convince themselves that they're a Tyler Hero away that I think there will be more of a bidding war for Hero this offseason than there ordinarily would be.
Oh yeah. I mean, the top of the East is not, Detroit winning 60 games. Look, they should be looking to add somebody. They need to add somebody. They need to add some more scoring and some spacing. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of teams. Like if you're Toronto, you might be thinking like we're one guy away. And if you're Atlanta, you might be thinking maybe Orlando, we can be number one in the East or whatever. So yeah, I think I agree with you where it's like, if you're the Bucks, you are in position. You kind of hold some power here as like we have guys we want to move who can be helpful to your team.
Yeah, and I think to a lesser degree, you could say the same thing about Jaquez, he's just a winning player, right? He was kind of the perfect guy for the Heat. I don't know if you saw the video today of him finding out he got traded.
I did.
He didn't look thrilled. I'm sure he probably knew it was coming, and it was like, oh damn, oh man.
I'm trying to think about like if I was hooping and somebody came up to me, or I like checked my phone and got an email and it was like basically you're fired. Like how would I react? Would I just be like, would I be freaking out? No, I'd probably be like, oh man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go get some shots up, I guess. What else am I gonna do? So
like worse yet would be because he was surrounded by, it looked like he was playing on like a YMCA or something. Like these were not NBA players that he was running with. Worse yet would be somebody coming up to you and showing you an email saying that you got fired.
that would be amazing.
Okay, so we are through 10 picks now, with Brayden Burries going to Milwaukee at 10. That means the Golden State Warriors are officially on the clock. So given what we have seen so far, Alex, I like the Burries pick quite a bit. Morez Johnson, not a ton of fantasy consideration there. How would you order, like if you had to take, or if you're just ranking the rookies right now for fantasy purposes, who is your 1, 2, 3?
I mean, Acuff might be number one. Boozer. Probably
Boozer's got to be one for me.
Boozer, and then I would start thinking about Acuff probably. And then even if the situation isn't great, it's going to be hard for me to decide between like Peterson, Dybantsa, and who am I not thinking? I mean, Mikel Brown is kind of in a good situation. Caleb Wilson with the stocks upside, is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a huge difference for you between Acuff and Mikel Brown fantasy wise? I think very similar situations. I would say with Acuff, maybe a little bit more playmaking potential.
Yes, I do think he has more playmaking potential, but there are more pieces around him with like Julius Randle, and because Sacramento's roster could just be barren by the time we get to the season. It could just be Acuff, and then he's in a better situation.
We have another Michigan Wolverine off the board. Yaxel Lendeborg is your selection to the Golden State Warriors at 11. So Aday is going to be the third Wolverine of the three, which I think if you looked at the betting odds, that would not have been the favorite outcome. So the big knock on Lendeborg, of course, is the age, right? I think other than that, you're looking at one of the more dominant college players of the last few years, specifically last season at Michigan, even before he transferred in, had one dominant year as well. A really unique player. I think the age certainly was an advantage for him. You watch certain games and you're just like, all right, this actually does look like a man playing against a bunch of 18-year-olds, which was the case. But I like that we're maybe getting away from this a little bit. I know it's going to be a very freshman heavy lottery, but it did feel like for a while there, it was like, we don't care how good you are. If you're older than 22 years old, we're just not taking you in the lottery. Like this is a recognition of how skilled and unique Lendeborg is.
I like this pick for Golden State because they should not care about age.
No, they should not.
They need good players now. And I think Lendeborg is good. I mean, last year there was a decision about whether or not he would come out when he was at UAB. And, you and I do a lot of draft work.
Yeah.
And he was someone that I was looking at last year and was like, why is this guy not going higher? And then he goes to Michigan and he's fantastic. So it's like he made the bet and it worked out. I mean, obviously you mentioned the age. There are some people who have brought up just like, I would say maturity concerns or like how bad does he want it? Because his story from like when he started taking basketball seriously to now has kind of been up and down. But look, I mean, in terms of just a basketball player and how he fits on Golden State, it's perfect. Like, because Golden State runs this read and react off-ball offense. Everyone can, they in theory want everybody to do a little bit of everything and sort of like serve the greater good of like, let's get Steph Curry an open three. And I think he completely fits what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think this is a classic. I like it more because of the landing spots than I would have for, let's say the Brooklyn Nets took him at 11. That I would not, it's like, all right, second contract's coming when you're 28. I understand why Golden State has this level of urgency. It might just be over. Like, what is the path here? Like, are we still holding out hope for, they're linked to Trey Murphy. It's like, what are they giving up in a Trey Murphy trade? Like, what do the Pelicans want? I guess you could dig into some distant future picks, but look, I think we all love Steph. This is not a very good roster. Jimmy Butler's going to be coming off of an ACL, and best case scenario is he's back in December, January. I think that happened in early February. Draymond Green's a year older. Brandon Podziemski is Brandon Podziemski. I have no faith that Kristaps Porzingis staying on the court. Like, I think we still talk about the Warriors of like, can make a run around Steph. I don't see the upside. I don't see anything this team could do. If they were in the East, sure, you could sell me on like, all right, maybe they can get the 3 or 4 seed. Like, they're just not even in the same conversation to me as the two teams at the top of the West.
No, I think what they're playing for is like, they don't want to give up on Steph. I completely understand. Like, as a Bucks fan, Giannis just left and it sucks. You know what I mean? Like, you have to restart your whole franchise. That's your guy. Yeah, I think for them, like, they want that shot in the dark where they're like, okay, if everything breaks right, maybe we're like the 4 seed. And then what if Wembanyama gets hurt or somebody gets hurt? And then like, we're kind of like one injury from an injury to a guy on another team away from being in the NBA finals. Right. If all of our guys stay healthy. And it's like, you're stacking too many ifs, obviously. But like, unless you're going to trade Steph Curry, I think this is honestly your only path forward. And I think that what they've done just to acquire distressed assets, and all these guys are old, and like, I agree with you, what's their upside or whatever. What else are you going to do, man, if you're not going to trade Steph?
Yeah. I don't see that day ever coming. I mean, Golden State has shown zero willingness to even consider that. I think it would take Steph trying to force his way out, which he's also shown zero willingness to do. But yeah, just lean into it. I guess I'm a little intrigued by this fantasy wise, because there is opportunity in Golden State, especially the first few months of the season. I think in theory, you assume that Lendeborg, given his age, should translate right away better than most of these guys. I mean, is Guy Santos losing his starting spot?
I was going to say, I was just looking at that. I think he probably will, but he also might not. I don't know. But I think but just like we were talking about, I don't trust Porzingis to stay healthy. Al Horford's 100 years old. I don't trust him to stay healthy. Draymond certainly could get hurt at any time. Butler's out. Like, there are going to be plenty of games where Lendeborg might be like one of the only reliable front court players they have, and could play like 38 minutes on any particular night. So intriguing for fantasy. Yeah.
I mean, we're getting into the portion of the draft where it's, are you taking any of these guys in even the top 150. I don't know. I would consider a stab, somewhere in that 130 to 150 range.
Yeah, I mean, generally at this point, we're going to be talking more about like, are you interested in this guy in Dynasty? Or, some of the really bad teams that have picks later. It's like, okay, is this a good enough situation for like Ebuka, Okorie, or something like that to like have a good season? But yeah, I mean, as well as I do, like the last 4 picks of any fantasy draft you're in, guaranteed 2 of them are drops. So you shoot for upside, and we'll see.
Yeah, I think in our staff league, I took Bobby Portis with my final pick when there were just so many higher level options on the board. We are on to the 12th pick where OKC now is on the clock. And then we have Milwaukee up again at 13 and the Charlotte Hornets at 14 to finish out the lottery. So OKC, I think Morez Johnson to me would have probably been the best fit in terms of one of those guys that you would say, man, if he goes to OKC, that's just not fair. But they have instead taken the guy that we did speculate could be a Victor Wembanyama stopper. I don't know if I would go quite that far, but they've leaned into it. Aday Mara, our 3rd Michigan player off the board now in the last 4 picks.
Yeah, look, this makes sense for them. I think in the sense that I do not believe Chet Holmgren is a true center. I just don't think he's capable of it physically. No. Now, Aday Mara is also not the bulkiest guy ever, and he's also not particularly athletic for how skinny he is. But look, I mean, they might not be able to hold on to Hartenstein, just given like the salary required for their core players. And if that's the case, then you want a center next to Holmgren, and you want a guy who is a smart passer and can just play like high IQ basketball. I think that is Aday Mara. He is a good passer.
Yeah.
I don't think the shot's going to come. I think he's sort of getting like labeled as a potential shooter because he's like a tall white guy who's kind of coordinated, but he's like a terrible free throw shooter.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm generally interested in this. I've heard some analysts say like there's almost no chance he plays more than 25 minutes a game as an NBA player. But like for OKC, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'd certainly not right away. I would expect him to play anywhere close to that. I mean, I'm looking at Hartenstein now. Hartenstein, who's turned into a very good NBA player and has been for several years. He only has 1 season where he's been over 25 minutes per game. So I think that's fine. I think it's about being able to give San Antonio looks for 6 minutes a half, right? Where all of a sudden we bring this guy out there and he's 7'3" and good luck getting to the rim on him. Now, I don't ever see a future where he's playing 28, 29 minutes per game. But I think you're right. I think it is, preparing for likely a future without Isaiah Hartenstein at some point.
Yeah, I like how on the broadcast they just said floor spacing center. No, I'm sorry. Like he went 3 of 10 from 3 this year. 3 of 10.
30%.
30%, shot 56% from the free throw line. He's a floor spacing center.
Yeah.
Like he's not. I'm sorry.
Got worse at the free throw line each year in college.
Yeah. Was also like not particularly good at UCLA. This has kind of been like a long time coming for him. There were concerns about his like maturity even before he got to college. I think this is fine. The thing about the Wemby stopper thing, Wembanyama is also not really a center on offense. Like ideally he is getting the rim because he's huge. But his advantage really is that like he drags the opposing team center out and then he shoots threes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I don't think they drafted him for that reason. I think they drafted him because they like him and because you need a center next to Chet and he fits what they want to do offensively.
Aday Mara, your number 12 overall pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So Bucks are now back on the clock at 13. This is where things are going to start to get very interesting. Alex, Steinbach still on the board. Cameron Carr still on the board. Nate Ament still on the board. Where would you go if you're Milwaukee now getting a second shot in the lottery?
I think, look, it's not what I would do. I don't blame them for probably about to be doing this. I think they're going to take Nate Ament because you've got your sort of like floor raising, just solid point guard type. And now you can just be like, all right, upside, Nate Ament. I also I don't blame them necessarily because you got a guard, so you're not gonna like take a shot on probably Bennett, Stirtz, or like Labaron Philon or something. And I'm not like I don't think you draft Lopez this high. You missed out on Morez. Some people like Dailyn Swain, which I think is like fair, but he's not really ever mocked over Nate Ament. I'm curious to see what they do, but I'm like 90% expecting Ament.
I mean, they were linked to Ament at 10. I think they're probably thrilled that he's on the board. So I would expect that to be the pick. I don't necessarily think I would be drafting for positional fit, even if I'm Milwaukee at all. You know, I know, like you said, they got Burries. You do have Rollins on the roster as kind of the one keeper. You probably want to make some room for Yaxel, so maybe that's somewhat of a consideration. But again, I am operating as though Tyler Hero is probably not a part of the plan for Milwaukee. The question is, what are you trying to get back for Hero? Are you trying to get a more pick space package? Are you trying to steal a young player? Like I know Detroit is the team that's been mentioned most. I don't know that I'm fired up about what Detroit would potentially be sending back in that deal.
I talked to RotoWire NBA podcast legend Shannon McEwen.
Of course.
And I said, how would you feel if the Bucks sent you Hero and you sent back Ron Holland and 21? And he said, call it in. And I said,
that would be devastating.
Honestly, I mean, I don't know. I honestly, I don't, it's not great, but like, I think if you're the Bucks and you just like want to get off of him, I don't know. I don't think the thing is, I think Hero is really overrated as an asset. That's my opinion. He is a one-way player who is always hurt, and he's not that young.
I mean, I agree. I don't think other teams necessarily feel that way. Like I think selling him for Ron Holland and number 21, like not even getting a lottery pick, like even if you take Holland out of it, that would seem like a big disappointment to me. And I don't know, maybe that's part of the reason that they got the 3 firsts in the swap from Miami. You know, on top of that, maybe they know that market isn't going to be quite as hot. I feel like you can get, even if you're not getting a unprotected 2028 first from Team X, I think you can get a better young asset than Ron Holland.
Probably. I think I don't like Ron Holland either, to be clear. I'm not a Ron Holland guy. But I think that's maybe the framework where it's like, okay, there's like a young player who is maybe like not fitting with his current team, and they also have a pick they're willing to give up and something like that.
Would Portland be a potential fit for Tyler Hero?
Portland? You talking about Scoot? You trying to trade Scoot?
I'm not talking about Scoot.
I don't know. Let me refresh this. Yeah, because they have Drew, but it's like I don't know. I mean, in theory, if you're keeping Drew, he makes up for somewhat Hero's doing defensively. Kamara is a good defender. Klingon's a good defender. Avdia, when he is taking on less usage, has been a good defender in the past. Hero might be a little redundant with Shig and Sharp, but your roster is kind of like defense heavy right now. I think they could make the call. Yeah, I think you have to talk about that if you're Portland.
Are there any other obvious Hero teams that come to mind for you? Like I know like Orlando is one, but then it's like I don't know what that trade would look like. Is Suggs involved in that? I could see a Minnesota desperation deal. I could see maybe a Houston desperation deal.
Yeah, this is, I don't know if this is a cop-out answer, but like any team that's a contender or fringe contender that just needs scoring, and they don't care about anything other than like, we need a dude who can get us 20 a game if we have to. We need a guy who at worst could be like a high-level sixth man for us. And I think that's what Tyler Hero can be for a lot of teams.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I still think he's probably viewed as higher than that. If you're Detroit, like, he would step in as your very, very clear number 2 option, and for better or for worse, a significant upgrade over whoever that was. I mean, I guess it was Tobias Harris by the time we got to the playoffs.
I mean, in theory, I like it for them. Because they have this established defense, it's like they can take on the issues that Tyler Hero has as a defender. At some point, you have to just break your identity a little bit because you have to score points in a basketball game.
Yeah. So we are still awaiting the 13th pick. Pick is in. No announcement quite yet.
I will say, like, Steinbach has also been like but like rumored as a potential option for the Bucks here. I'm not really a Steinbach guy, to be
He's been
honest with
threatened
you.
as a potential pick here.
He really has. All right, let's see what Silver has here.
There it is.
Yeah. Look, Nate Ament. This is a tough sell because I don't like Ament that much. He, I was talking to some of my Bucks friends and they're like, what does he do? Like, what do you hang your hat on? I'm like, he shoots over guys who are shorter than him and he does not do it efficiently. I think like the bet on him, but the thing is, I don't hate the process for Milwaukee because you are potentially entering a long rebuild. And this is a guy who is a somewhat of a project. You do not find a lot of guys who are in fact 6'10", legit 6'10",
yeah,
who look good with a basketball in their hands and like can make moves. There was that video, of the workout with him and AJ Dybantsa. And look, Dybantsa looked better, but like Nate Ament, just general smoothness and like a workout type setting looks very good. He needs to improve. His shot was really streaky and pretty bad at points. He would force a lot. He is not like a great free throw. He's not like such a good free throw shooter that you're like, oh, he definitely just had a bad year shooting three. If he was like an 85% free throw shooter, you'd be like, oh, well, this guy's going to be like a 39% 3-point shooter. I'm not worried about it. It's not like that. I think he was 79% or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
A fair upside play at this point in the draft once you already got your sort of solid guy.
I agree, man. I think if you told the Bucks you're going to come out of this with Burries and Ament, I think they would be completely fine with that. I think they would be surprised to get Burries and then still get their guy at 13. So, yeah, like you said, I think we locked in you lock in the seemingly higher upside guy or higher floor guy, in Burries, and then you're a little more willing to take a shot. And look, it's the 13th overall pick in the draft. Like at that point, we're not going to quibble, especially if you're OKC, if you're San Antonio making that pick, even if you're one of these teams in the East that feels like you have a chance, there's a little bit more pressure to get a guy who can contribute right away. I think with Ament, this is a solid landing spot. Like you're not, the Bucks to me are not Sacramento. They're not the previous iteration of Brooklyn, pre Julius Randle edition, where I think there is still going to be some structure here. I think a coach like Taylor Jenkins is kind of the right type of guy for Ament to work with, right? Like this is not going to be the Wizards last year where there's literally video of the coach just like sitting there silently during a timeout, just being like, yeah, do whatever you guys want. I think this is actually going to be a pretty reasonable development environment. Not going to be a lot of interest for me in fantasy. You're going to have to be in a pretty deep league to take a look at Ament. Under 40% from the field, despite not even taking that many threes. 29% usage rate, took about 3.5, almost 4 threes per game. Didn't shoot those efficiently, which doesn't help the old percentage, but not an effective shooter at the rim. I think you framed it well that he looks great in a workout when you got the guy kind of holding the pad on the fadeaway jumper. That's going to be good. Got bullied a lot. I feel like every time I watched him at Tennessee, I went in excited. You see a few flashes here and there. You see the smoothness, but there was just kind of a general timidness, weakness to his game.
He's 6'10", 211. He's kind of slight, and he's not a springy athlete either. But yeah, man, he needs to find. And look, to his credit, they asked him at Tennessee to do a lot. Yeah, they did give him a lot of grenades. And we're like, make something happen with this because we know that no matter who's on you, you can shoot over them.
Yeah.
He shot better in high school, not like crazy efficiently. I watched the high school tape because I was so like confused about his, about his draft stock. And I didn't like it either, which is kind of a concern. You want to watch a guy's high school mixtape and feel like he is like making the other people on the court look like a laughing stock. And he was still sort of like taking these contested 17-foot jumpers over kids who are like 5'11". And I'm like, please go to the rim. He was able to draw fouls too. Like he's a weird profile because he shot a lot of mid-rangers and drew fouls. I don't necessarily know if that'll fly in the NBA. I think he was getting a lot of like guys are pressuring him so hard and they're not great defenders and they just foul him on a mid-range jumper. And I think guys are more disciplined in the NBA.
So where are we going now with Charlotte at 14? I think this is a team where you feel like you have your three-man core, at least. I think you're feeling better about LaMelo. Obviously, you feel great about Knippel, Brandon Miller coming off of a nice year. I don't know that Miles Bridges is in the the long-term plan. I think certainly you could use an upgrade at center. I think a Dybantsa, had he fallen to 14, would have been very, very interesting for Charlotte, just to kind of give them another look. Not that he's all that dissimilar from Ryan Kalkbrenner, but the Diabate Kalkbrenner duo, it got him by this year. I think you could upgrade that in the long term. It's also not a team that has a ton of depth beyond that top 5, top 6, if we're counting Coby White, who I don't know if he's going to be on this roster next year. They have to figure that out in the offseason. So in theory, you could be essentially using a number 1 backup at just about any position on the roster.
I've heard some rumblings that Coby White is maybe gone. Like I think they're looking to move him. 2 names like I've heard recently for the Charlotte, you alluded to it, Steinbach. Like you just get a center in there. He would fit there. Charlotte basically established an identity last year with we rebound the basketball. And Steinbach, I know. And Steinbach he makes sense with that. And then I also heard like kind of an interesting case. I think Sam Vecini was making the case of like, should they just grab like Bennett Stirtz and just have this sort of like, because I think they're kind of on the right track with Coby White, which is like, we sort of need a little more like guard, LaMelo's not always available. Stirtz can play on and off the ball in theory. I still think they'll go Steinbach because it just fit wise and makes sense for them.
All right. Pick is being announced as we speak. Okay. We are announcing the Bucks Heat trade.
Thanks, Mr. Silver.
Hannes Steinbach is your pick. A good call by you, Alex Barutha. So Hannes Steinbach out of Washington. They go a little more size in Charlotte. Again, a team that could have gone in any direction here, just doubling down on the rebounding. I don't really have a problem with this. I mean, I don't think it precludes you from still seeking an upgrade at center long term. I don't know if that player is necessarily out there this offseason, but you got a guy who could swing between the 4 and the 5. Right now, backup power forward might be their biggest need. If we assume there's some chance that they bring back Coby White, I don't know that Grant Williams can be the long-term option. I haven't heard a whole lot about Tajon Salon, a guy who I took in a bunch of my guys 2 years ago. After that, you're getting into Zion James, you're getting into Liam McNeely, guys who are going to be fringe roster dudes. So I don't mind this. I mean, Charlotte, I can't believe we're saying this. I mean, they're in win now mode.
I think Steinbach can play some 4.
Yeah.
It depends on his shot. Like that's really there are 2 big questions from Steinbach. Is he actually able to shoot the ball? They didn't ask him to do a lot at Washington. And who does he guard? Which is partially why I didn't like him which I did not like him as like a Bucks guy, because I'm like, this guy is like, you have to have a team kind of already set up for this guy. You can't be like, well, we're drafting Nikola Vucevic to be our star. It's like that's not how you play this game. So I think he could fill in a little 4 for them. The question about like who's going to clean up some mistakes on defense is fair. He confuses me a lot because he tested really well athletically. He had like 95th percentile lane agility for centers. He has a 30-inch vertical. But then I was watching a game where he was playing Baylor and he was like tripping over people and stumbling around and being like shoved over by guards when he was trying to go for rebounds. I'm like, I don't think he knows how to like quite use his body yet. But look, I mean, at this pick with your needs as a franchise, go right ahead. I think LaMelo's a great passer. He'll help get the most out of him. He can set good screens. He can probably dribble handoff to Knippel, set some like brick wall screens, and same with Brandon Miller. So I think if you're a Hornets fan, you're relatively You should be good with this.
Yeah, I think so. Again, we're at that point in the draft where it's hard to quibble with any of these picks. Interesting shot of Steinbach with the family there. I don't know if that's girlfriend or sister. We got a cast on the left wrist area, so that's something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I like this pick for Charlotte. I think there were some bigger upside stabs available. You know, if they wanted to go Cameron Carr, if they wanted to go Kareem Lopez, I think those would have been a little bit more classic Charlotte Hornets selections.
Carr, yeah. Lopez, they already have Salon.
Right.
Can't
they already got
him. You know, they could have maybe went with like Alan Graves, but I probably don't like Graves as much as the stat sheet guys do. There was maybe, probably not. He's falling really far, I think, because of the knee thing, but there was maybe like a Jayden Quaintance possibility in terms of like an upside swing at the position. But I also think they're like almost too good now. I don't know. Yeah, I ultimately I like the pick.
Yeah, we're entering now in a couple picks at least a pretty fun portion of the draft. We got Chicago coming up next at 15. I think to me that's still a very much upside, best player available, could go in any direction type of pick. Memphis, same thing at 16. But we then get a run of OKC, Charlotte, Toronto, San Antonio, Detroit. Like all of those are going to feel like impact picks, you know, picks that will matter for next season. Maybe OKC to a lesser degree, with that being their second. But yeah, Alan Graves to me is really interesting. He was somebody I was reading up on a little bit more earlier today. One of the first players, I think, in draft history to just solely rise on the analytics. You know, there was actually a huge feature on him in the New York Times about, it's like, yeah, nobody even knew who this guy was all that long ago. And kind of the stat guys got a hold of him. I did get some David Roddy vibes a little bit, who had a kind of a similar kind of profile coming out of college.
That's tough.
It might be the hair.
Yeah. He is a as people on Twitter would say, he's a spreadsheet FC guy. Look, he came off the bench and played 23 minutes a game, and I watched him play. I always have a hard time remembering who I watch these guys play against. He looked tired, even playing 23 minutes a game. Like, I don't think he's in great shape. And you know, he can hopefully continue shooting the three well. I just don't know, man. I don't know.
It didn't necessarily look like an NBA player. I'll say that.
Yeah,
And I'm a huge fan of guys like that, you know, players who just kind of make it work based on feel for the game and you know, raw effort oftentimes. But those guys are so few and far between. And again, we're getting to a range in the draft where I have no problem, you know, taking a stab on something like that. But it's rare.
And I mean, he also, like, the really easy thing to point to is be like, okay, he had a 5% steal rate, 5% block rate, like versatile defender or whatever. He fouled a lot. He fouled everybody, partially why he couldn't play a ton of minutes. And he offensive rebounds, and that's great. But like, I don't know, man. I hate to like devalue some of these offensive rebounding guys. So much of offensive rebounding in college is just like, you're just there.
Yeah.
You're kind of moving guys out of the way. You're kind of just standing there. And that's kind of what I got. Like, he definitely hustles and all that, but watching him, I was not. The thing is, you were right to reframe the draft where we are in the draft earlier. We're out of the lottery. We're at pick 15 or whatever. People were talking about Graves like he might go like 7.
Yeah.
Which is like, now I feel like there's sort of like buyback where it's like we have to be like, okay, no, he actually is probably going to be like solid as a role player.
Well, there are certain drafts where I think you could justify something like that, like the 2024, you know, like that was, you know, Ron Holland goes 5, Salon goes 6, you know, Dillingham went 8, Edey went 9, Cody Williams, who I just never understood that, still don't, you know, went 10. But in that draft, you're like, whatever. I mean, all bets are off. I don't care. Take Zach Edey, you know, a guy who traditionally would be like a second round pick. In this draft, no, I don't think, you know, going inside the top 10 was ever going to be realistic. Pick is in for the Chicago Bulls at 15. So we'll pass that along as soon as we have it. Bulls, of course, went Caleb Wilson with the 4th overall pick. we talked a little bit about Caleb Wilson and his fits, the fantasy upside. I love Caleb Wilson and Matas Buzelis together. I mean, this is for guys you're likely starting at the 3 and 4. I mean, that is like as good of a shot blocking duo as you will ever see among non-centers. I think they're going to be a really fun team. I don't know that they're going to win a ton of games. I think Caleb Wilson, we've talked about the development that needs to happen shooting wise. Effort wise, I have no question marks whatsoever. Motor, no question marks whatsoever. Really smart guy. I think he is somebody that I would trust to maximize that potential. The Chicago Bulls have added Dailyn Swain, guard out of Texas, at pick 15.
I thought they might go Cam Carr here, but look, Swain, I think you like the reason Swain is not going higher is because he is not a reliable 3-point shooter.
Yep.
He also is not like a true playmaker. Like he's a little Keldon Johnson to me, where it's just like he is athletically gifted. He makes hard, decisive moves, and he's a great athlete. And occasionally you watch him and he just looks like again, another one of these guys we talk about. You watch these guys on tape. Are they making pro moves? Swain makes pro moves to the basket, and he's a pretty solid defender. So he is one of those guys where it's like, okay, if you get him into a situation and you're able to turn him into like a 35% 3-point shooter or something like that, just competent, and he's a good defender and he can drive hard, he has real potential. He has real potential.
Yeah, I think you're leaning in on the defense, no question. If you're Chicago, you like the size for a guy who could play the 2, could play the 3. They list him at 6'7". Did make a pretty big leap sophomore year to junior year, so he is a slightly older prospect. Played his first 2 years at Xavier before transferring into Texas. 17 and 7, 3.5 assists per game, 1.6 steals each of the last 2 years at the college level. I think it's hard to say if you're Chicago, because again, we're at the point in the draft where it's like, are you drafting guys who you feel are going to be foundational pieces? Is this somebody you are saying, okay, we think he profiles as somebody who would play well next to Josh Giddey? Is that part of the reason we're making this pick?
Nobody plays well next to Josh Giddey who can't shoot is kind of like
right.
My concern. But at the same time, like I think they're establishing an identity. So like whether or not these guys are like perfect fits with Josh Giddey or not, like I don't know. But look, you're going to be fast and you're going to be playing defense. Like they are going to be really entertaining, super athletic, really disruptive as a basketball team. So, and I think that like for all those same reasons, they could have drafted Cam Carr. Now Cam Carr is more of like a theoretical defender than he is an actual defender. Mm-hmm. Obviously he has a better 3-point shot. You're kind of doing your like trade-offs, evaluating Swain versus Cam Carr. But I like this too. And, I watched Swain play against Purdue, and for the first half, like they were putting what's his name, Brayden Smith on him, and he was like standing in the corner. And I'm like, I don't know if this is coaching or what, but like, why is Swain not posting up Brayden Smith and drawing a double? Why are you not giving it to him on the wing and just having him annihilate Brayden Smith, who's just like 5'10", like literally the smallest guy in the draft? So I think maybe like in an NBA system, he could be better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Fantasy wise, probably not a ton here. Deep leagues, maybe you're looking at some steals. Yeah. That's about it for me. Not a whole lot of interest. So Memphis now back on the clock at 16. They of course took Cam Boozer at 3. Needs all over the place. In theory, you have Ty Jerome, who is going to be allowed to play more than 2 games in a row next season. I'm excited to see what that looks like. I'm a Ty Jerome fan.
Yeah.
Can he actually be a true, legitimate, I don't know, top 20 starting point guard in the NBA? We are yet to find out. I don't think we ever really got a true preview of that last season. But again, you have Cam Boozer locked in at the 4. You feel good about Cedric Howard bouncing between the 2 and the 3. We expect Ja Morant to be off this roster at some point. If healthy, you have a center in Zach Edey, but I think you could still go in any direction here justifiably if you're Memphis.
I think, they like these versatile guys. They like guys with size. like Graves might kind of make sense for them. I think
he would be a very Grizzlies pick.
But then like you also kind of wonder like Boozer is theoretically a franchise cornerstone, and I think you should only be drafting like most of the time if you're a young team and you're bad, you should only be drafting for upside unless you have a franchise cornerstone.
Yes.
And if Boozer is that guy, I don't know if you want to kind of like double down with Graves. Not that they're like exactly the same player or anything like that. You know, I've heard some Stirtz interest. Bennett Stirtz interest maybe here if you're trying to move on from Morant. Might actually be able to play with Morant as well because I think Stirtz is energetic off ball, knows how to play off ball. Maybe you double down on like the Cedric Coward thing. You draft Cam Carr. You have Cam Carr and Cedric Coward surrounding Cam Boozer and Zach Edey. That could be good too.
Yeah, Cam Carr is where I would lean. I think Memphis has a long history of getting players like that to pan out seemingly more frequently than other franchises would. You know, a lot of these, you know, either underrated college players or more measurables type of guys, they seem to go to Memphis and find success there. I still think though you need to bring in guard talent. Like even if you're feeling good about Ty Jerome, there's just not a whole lot else there. KCP, not the future. You know, they got Walter Clayton in that deal with Utah. I'm Walter Clayton curious, but I think he probably tops out as a 7th or 8th man overall. I mean, it's astonishing if you look at our depth chart page at RotoWire, like the dudes who are getting real minutes for this team over the second half of the season. Like again, if you're taking Morant out of this, and if Coward is spending a decent amount of time at the 3, it's probably the worst backcourt depth in the NBA, maybe by a lot.
Yeah, I would have to think about that more, but it's not great. I think you'd be. Oh yeah, they took Stirtz.
Well, they did, but I just got an alert that says Memphis is trading the number 16 pick, Bennett Stirtz, to the Oklahoma City Thunder for 2 second-rounders. What?
Excuse me?
Is this collusion?
2 Blackmail?
Seconds? So there we have it. Bennett Stirtz going to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
All right, this is my first official shock of the night. We talk about the draft to open up. SGA is not like a true point guard, right? Like he is more of like a lead guard. He gets to his spots, and we know that Sam Presti, in addition to having a sort of like fascination with like Ousmane Dieng types, also really likes a point guard type. Like Josh Giddey, Nikola Topic, Bennett Stirtz, now kind of like part of this grouping. I like this for them because, like I said, I think when I watch him, he like obviously he was Iowa, and he ran a lot of pick and roll, and he was a point guard. But he would very often give the ball up, run around a bunch of screens, like actually kind of like Steph Curry in some ways, like the way he was acting. So I think for them, this is a pretty good grab. I mean, if this 2 second, I feel weird saying this, if this 2 second round picks thing is real, I'm a little confused, and I feel like it's a fleece.
It's coming from Shams. This feels like definitely a fleece. We'd have to look back at when the last time a pick this high was traded for a non-first round pick. You know, not even a future first round pick.
I have no idea. Yeah. I'm very confused. I don't know, like what, like even if you don't. The thing is that even if you don't like a lot of the guys in this range, how is 2 second round picks value? Like, just take, I don't know, take anybody, take Kareem Lopez.
Is it about the salary slot for Memphis?
Take acquaintance. Like, what? Like, who are you scared of reaching for? Like, I don't care. Take Joshua Jefferson. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just take your shot. Like, why are you rolling this over into 2 seconds?
Very odd. Very odd.
I've seen some people say, now granted, these are Twitter commenters saying that like, maybe there's something, there should be something else because, if I'm not mistaken, OKC has 17. So, like, yeah, because OKC's back on the clock with 17.
Right.
So, but so then would they have traded up one spot and given?
Okay. Shams has since clarified. Yes. So Memphis will pick at 17. So it's basically the 1 pick swap for 2 seconds.
Okay. Well, sure. Okay, Memphis. That's good then. I'm
Yeah.
no longer shocked.
It's basically we're going to give you these things to promise that you don't draft Bennett Stirtz. So they must have had a very strong feeling that that's where Memphis was going. We will pay you to not draft him.
Yeah. Yeah, and they must have or Memphis must have not. Yeah, Memphis didn't feel as strongly about him as OKC did.
Yeah.
I think I outlined all the reasons I like Bennett Stirtz.
Yeah. I think this is also another way to read this is Cason Wallace insurance. If and when he moves on from OKC, whether that's this offseason or next.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they went out and got Jared McCain, who is like a score. Like Presti seems to feel like they need some sort of like scoring or usage, like either punch or optionality around SGA. And I think Stirtz is kind of like that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think they have it in AJ Mitchell and Jalen Williams. They didn't have it when they needed it most, of course, in that San Antonio series. But look, I also don't mind Presti burning through some of these assets, and we're talking about like the lowest of the low, this cache of second round picks, but it's like, this is exactly the stuff you should be doing. Like you have maximum flexibility. If you have a guy and it feels 50-50, if he's going to be there, like, yeah, who cares? Give up the 2 seconds to get Bennett Stirtz. I think we are setting up for what could be an all-time hateable player team match. Like if Bennett Stirtz comes in and is lighting it up for the Thunder as a rookie next season, like the OKC has entered that territory that the Spurs were in for so long, where you just assume no matter who they take, they're going to turn out. They stole them. Any other team wouldn't have mattered, but man, we couldn't have let OKC. Thomas Sorber, how did we let him go to the OKC Thunder? Nikola Topic, they stole that guy. When you look back, and even like a lot of those Spurs draft picks that we were so high on, like didn't really end up panning out. But if this hits, this is going to be an all-time like frustrating guy to be torching your team.
Yeah, unfortunately, I really like him as a player. I think of course, like there are the reasons he's going this late. Which is just like he's 23 and is he capable of playing defense? But then when you're OKC, it's like, well, we've surrounded this man with 4 defenders. So it just kind of doesn't matter.
And what are we ultimately asking of Bennett Stirtz to play?
Sixth man upside.
Yeah, right. I mean, year one, it's like he might not even be in the rotation. And even in an ideal scenario, I mean, it's kind of like what we talked about with the Dybantsa, right? Where it's situational basketball. Like I don't think you're drafting. You're not drafting with the expectation that we are getting a starter. You're drafting with the expectation that we have more optionality basically than any team in the NBA. We have our core completely locked in. We have the best guard in basketball, and we want to be able to throw different looks at you.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's a smart move, and I think he makes like. I think that there are other guys who would make sense for Memphis, which is probably why they were willing to give it up. They're like, we have multiple directions we can go. We're a little bit of a blank slate. Meanwhile, like OKC is probably not like, they probably didn't want to take the risk of like losing Stirtz and then having to be like, maybe Labaron Philon is good with this team. Like, they probably didn't want to take like Kareem Lopez. Like they should want guys in this team who can help in theory win a title, even if it's only playing like 12 minutes a game in a game 7.
So we have a reported pick now for Memphis after what was a very confusing couple of minutes where it appears that they somehow let a first round pick go for 2 seconds, but they trade back to 17. They will take Ebuka Okorie out of Stanford. I like it.
Okay. I feel like I was high on Okorie. Apparently at least one other team agreed with me. Look, it only takes one, right? Like really the only knock, in my opinion, the only real knock on Okorie is that he's 6'1". And like there are, again, the small guard thing, it's real. Like, again, we're going to harken back to Reed Shepherd all the time now because he's the example. But Okorie is like a legit high usage guy, has long arms.
Yep.
And I think he's good. He's also really young.
Yep.
Like he's not one of these he's not old and short and like bad defensively. He is at least young and took on a high usage role, and I think he looks really good. The advanced numbers love him for what it's worth.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, was far and away the number one option for that Stanford team. I'm looking at, I mean, some of the advanced numbers. I mean, basically had like double the assist rate of the next highest, 31% usage rate last season. It does appear, however, that this will not be a Memphis pick. Shams Charania reporting that Memphis is trading back again. It will be the Detroit Pistons getting Okorie at 17.
That, you know what? That makes sense for them. They get their offensive guy. Now, they tried this with Marcus Sasser.
They did.
And that didn't work out. But I think, you know what? I'm fine with the bites at the apple. Like, yeah, like I said, I like Okorie. There is, you know, I was looking on, I did this, I put together a thing on Twitter. I posted it, basically like seeing what advanced stats, including age, correlated the most with guys' rankings on like big boards, consensus. Like I took like 5 of them. And sort of then was asking, you know, AI, I'm like, that now build a big board of like top 30 guys just based off of this. And it's a lot of advanced numbers. It's regular, it's adjusted plus minus, and it's net rating, and it's VORP and all this stuff. And Okorie was like 4th on that. So like you are getting a very interesting guy. I like the optionality next to Cade, and I do think he has, like obviously again, the size is the issue, but he has a good wingspan. And has experience running a high usage offense.
So Memphis picked up 3 more second round picks in this deal. They currently are sitting at 21. I assume furiously trying to auction that pick off, but 5 additional seconds now to move from, what was it, 16 back to 21. So one second round pick per spot move back. I've seen some Kemba Walker comps for Okorie. Okay. Do you buy that at all?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's like, I've seen, it depends because he doesn't necessarily fit the size of like some of these guys, because there are just not a lot of 6'1", 6'2" guards like in the NBA anymore. I saw like a, you know, smaller Tyrese Maxey. I've seen like maybe he just ends up being like Davion Mitchell. But like more sort of like usage and scoring based instead of just like being so passive on offense and probably a little worse on defense. You know, again, we're sort of like saying so many ifs and qualifiers that he's no longer the comp. I really like Okorie. You watch him play, and he was really dictating everything for Stanford.
I do feel like Maxey has kind of become the go-to for like a little bit of a smaller guard, but I see the wiggle. I see the shiftiness. I don't think Davion Mitchell is a bad comp either, because again, there's just not that many to choose from, but I think he's way smoother. I think he's way craftier getting to the rim than the Davion Mitchell ever was. Like I remember watching him at Baylor, and it was just, it was kind of the way he plays now, like very rigid. You know, you're not seeing a ton of athletic movement, kind of the classic, like looks like a running back playing in the NBA. And I don't get that with Okorie at all. I think there's a lot more sizzle to his game too. Like he kind of just seems like one of those guys who, again, almost like a little Jared McCain-esque to me too, where it's like, man, if this hits, this could be really good. And I think if you're Detroit, picking where they are, like that is the kind of upside that you need to take a shot on, because landing a Davion Mitchell type, like that's totally fine at pick 17. But I think if you're the Pistons, like you were. A lot of teams in the NBA that have either been good and gotten better have moved from, you know, good team to great team, or, you know, some of these great teams that have been sustainably great. Yes, there have been, you know, huge free agent additions, trades, things like that. But a lot of it is just like hitting on these mid to late round picks when you have them, and not necessarily finding a superstar, but like finding like, oh, this guy is all of a sudden our third option 2 years from now.
This is the story. I'm going to keep bringing back the Milwaukee Bucks. This is the story of the Milwaukee Bucks. They could not hit a single draft pick for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And it just ruined it. You're so relying on free agency and making trades, and then you're acquiring sort of like asset debt in a way, and just distressed assets and everything like that. But yeah, Okorie, is a guy who, again, everyone's going to say he's small, and I get that. Another guy, he actually, like, he is 6'1" without shoes. That is true. His standing reach is 8'2", for point guards at the combine, and this is like a 245 player sample, that's 43rd percentile.
Yeah.
Like he is not tiny. And you mentioned like some of his wiggle, 82nd percentile lane agility. Now he's not a good sprinter. He's actually like not that fast. But like he's a good enough athlete, I think, to survive in the NBA. And the thing is, you're not asking him to create all the time and be like this super high usage guy for Detroit. Like I think there's a world in which he's kind of like their third option to like start I mean, depends what happens with Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
And we'll like what we're doing about Jalen Darryn, if Jalen Duran's going to be a 20 point per game scorer in the NBA, or they just decide like, I don't know what happened in the playoffs. We can't be relying on this that much, but I like it.
I think if he goes into the year as a third option for Detroit, that is not a good thing if you're counting on that. Like that's nothing against Okorie whatsoever, but in general, team that was just the number 1 seed that like in theory is not losing any key pieces. Like the guy you draft at 17 should not be counted on for that kind of role, but they kind of need it, right? Like I don't think we're going to see the version of Tobias Harris that we saw for 2 rounds in the playoffs in the regular season. That was like that was the best stretch he's had in 5 years. Duncan, like a lot of these guys just kind of are what they are. There might be a little bit more coming for Asar Thompson, but I think he's stalled out a little bit offensively, at least. Duncan Robinson is just the most 3-point specialist guy in the NBA. You got to be very concerned about Jalen Darryn. Like I think there is urgency for Detroit. I don't think taking Okorie, precludes them from going out and getting Tyler Hero. But again, it's amazing to me, this team that didn't really fall off when Cade went down, because Dennis Jenkins was able to fill in. You're getting legit minutes out of Marcus Sasser. Like these are not reliable outcomes that you could depend on next season.
Easy to forget about Jenkins because but yeah, he was good too.
He was. Pick is in for the Charlotte Hornets at number 18. They go Christian Anderson out of Texas Tech. Your thoughts?
Unfortunately, a lot of what I saw from Christian Anderson was that last March Madness game. Was that against Alabama? He had like 4. He had a horrible game. Horrible. Was just like not that involved. They put a really good defender on him. It was just a tough game for him. I think Anderson, to me, look, he's a good 3-point shooter. I think he can do some pick and roll stuff. He's a solid passer. There's questions about like, is he strong enough? This to me feels like he kind of feels like one of the worst versions of like all of these guards, where it's just like he's a little too generic for me in a way. Where it's like I just don't feel like the upside is necessarily what I want it to be, but I might be lower on him than some other people because I think I saw him be too passive and play a couple bad games, and I was just like, he didn't seem involved in the way that I would want someone. Like he didn't seem like he wanted it bad enough, and I hate to be that guy who's like, I watched 2 hours of Christian Anderson. He didn't want it bad. He was not a dog, but I don't know. How do you feel about Anderson?
I think the 3-point shooting is very appealing. There's a 2-year college player, by the way, played 2 years at Texas Tech, 38% as a freshman, 41.5% as a sophomore. And when you go through and watch the tape on him, a lot of these are difficult looks. I mean, he is. My first thought when I first started watching him was like, all right, this is a little Rob Dillingham-ish with some of the side to side, 4 crossovers, step back. There are numerous plays in the cut up that I watched where, he's like, the defender is past him and then he's taking a step into the lane and he's shooting it off of 1 foot. Like the degree of difficulty on these shots on the one hand is impressive. On the other hand, does not feel sustainable at the NBA level. It's like you watch his 20 best plays. It's a lot of, driving with the head down, cross back, defender falls back. You're like, kind of the wow, like street ball type of plays, which these are players that I love as prospects. These are also players who almost never work at the NBA level. So again, we're at the point in the draft. I don't mind taking a stab on him. He's, to me, feels like the type of player that you often see in this range. Like if you're watching along, just go over to Basketball Reference and pick any draft, or better yet, multiple drafts, and just look at who goes between like 15 and 20. And it's almost an even split of like, oh, that guy turned out to be pretty good, or that guy was out of the league in 2 years.
And it's hard. It's hard when you're in the moment to be like, yeah, Christian Anderson might not be in the NBA in 2 years because
it feels impossible.
It does. It does. But look, I mean, I think if you're Charlotte, like if we're talking about fit, they need a little more. They just need alternative guard options other than LaMelo. You know, and like again, you have to frame the draft in a specific way at this point, which is like a realistic positive outcome for Christian Anderson is that he's a really good sixth man for the Charlotte Hornets. And so I think he has all those characteristics. You know, they're set with, LaMelo is their true point guard. You have Brandon Miller. So yeah, I fine pick by them.
Yeah, I actually think it's a very fun fit. I think style-wise, he fits with the Hornets really, really, really well. I think he will kind of play into the style that LaMelo likes to play, honestly, even if they're not sharing the court together. Good passer, not afraid to pull from any range whatsoever. I think it's a very fun fit. I don't know that he'll be a major impact guy in year one, but again, depends on what they do with Coby White. Like if you're taking him out of the equation, if they get priced out on Coby White, what's left? I mean, you're on to Trey Mann, you're on to Josh Green as the next two guards up. Like there may be a real impetus for him to play.
Well, and the fact that they acquired Trey Mann and have like seemed to believe in him or like want him to be good kind of tells me like they want this archetype next to LaMelo in some capacity. And like we were talking about earlier with them, with Steinbach, they're sort of establishing this identity of we run in transition, we launch threes, and if we miss those threes, we get the rebound.
Yeah. And he fits that perfectly.
He fits that perfectly.
Yeah. All right, so we're on to Toronto now at 19. A fun portion of the draft. Toronto, Detroit was going to be, Toronto, San Antonio was going to be Detroit. Now Memphis at 21, Sixers at 22, Atlanta Hawks will be back on the board at 23, and then the New York Knicks at 24. So Labaron Philon is still out there. Cameron Carr is still out there. Those are, to me, by far the two most intriguing players on the board. We've talked a little bit about Allen Graves, the analytics darling. I mean, Chris Sinak could be an option. We could be getting into some Koa Pete type of territory. This would be.
We know what type of guy they like to draft.
Yeah.
And that is like the Allen Graves type. It is the Zuby Ejiofor type. It is the Koa Pete type. It is the Joshua Jefferson type, who I think does have kind of a chance to like sneak a lot higher in the draft than he is projected. Like he's projected to be like, 30 something. And I would not be shocked if the Raptors take him here.
Well, Allen Graves is the pick at 19 out of Santa Clara. You could see why I made the David Roddy comp, Alex. It's not just the game. I think the overall look probably had something to do with that. Really, really interesting player, and I think somebody to in deeper leagues in Dynasty at least keep an eye on, just for the defensive potential. You mentioned the block rate, the steal rate, just a classic dirty work guy. I think the type of player I'm glad went in this range to a pseudo contender, I guess, in Toronto. Somebody who has a chance to be an impact guy. We saw Murray Boyles step in last year and end up playing major minutes for them. Another team that, again, I think you think of some of the big names in their starting five. They have a really solid top six if you're counting Pirtle and Murray Boyles. I'm still a Jamal Shed guy as far as being a reliable backup point guard. But, if you're looking at depth at the 3, depth at the 4, not a whole lot there right now. They don't want to have to play a ton of Jamison Battle and, AJ Lawson. Got a really nice kind of second leap, I feel like, from Scotty Barnes this past year, but a team that is probably in a little bit more need of depth than you might think.
Yeah, and he fits the archetype of what they like. I think they've ran into this issue before where it's like you put so many guys on the floor who do the same thing and you're like, someone's got to shoot the ball. But look, you mentioned it. Like, I think Graves is like a 3-4.
Yeah.
Barnes is kind of like a 3 through 5. Murray Boyles he can at least guard 3 through 5. I feel like he's most natural at probably the 5. And yeah, I mean, I think Graves has some work to do, honestly. Like, you watch a tape and like he does not seem like he might not be athletic enough right away. He's one of those guys who is like he's not overweight, but he plays like he's fat. You know what I mean? Like he just is not. Seems like he gets tired really easily, and he's not necessarily that quick, but you're like, he's also not like big. So you're like, what? It's weird to say like he's just not athletic. But if the 3-point shot's real, like that's the thing. So much of this depends on, can he improve his frame and conditioning, and can he consistently hit threes? And he was good from three. As a whole, he took 90 of them. I think he hit 40%. So makes a lot of sense that he is a Toronto Raptor.
Yeah, I mean, not high degree of difficulty on the vast majority of those threes, which is fine. I mean, you're not dumping the ball to Allen Graves and saying, "Hey, go create a shot for us." A lot of those are pick and pop situations, kicks to the corner, but over 41% on 2.6 attempts per game last season at Santa Clara. Only played 22 minutes per game, by the way, and obviously was mostly a bench guy for Santa Clara. So one of those players that I wouldn't just look at the raw averages and feel like you could project that. But look, the 2 steals per game stands out. And again, I wouldn't throw out, like the guy I always think of for defensive specialists who's still bouncing around is Matisse Thybulle. It's not quite on that level where even that did translate right away. Like, did he start with the Sixers when they were just getting out of the process?
Yeah, he's a process guy.
Yeah, right. So like he had opportunity right away, and you could kind of tell, like, all right, the insane defensive numbers at the college level did translate. We're not quite on that level, but if you're looking for just somebody to hold, in a deeper dynasty league, if you're trying to look at defensive stats, maybe that's the stretch I'm trying to make for fantasy purposes, but not a guy who I think will play enough to impact the vast majority of redraft leagues.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of getting into the range where there's some like we're getting into like a run of forwards and centers here.
Yeah.
And a lot of these forwards, we're gonna say some version of like, this guy's kind of like Draymond, but not. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, hey, if Allen Graves works out, steals and blocks, he knows how to pass. We're gonna say the same thing kind of about like Ejiofor and Koa Pete. It's like, these guys know how to play basketball. They're 6'8". They can guard everybody. What's the problem? They cannot shoot. They just can't shoot. So I think we're gonna get a little bit of a run of some of those guys.
We're also at a point where we may just have to stop offering any fantasy analysis for next season. Like I'm looking back. So we started with the 15th pick last year. I don't think there was a single player drafted from 15 onward to the end of the first round who was consistently rostered, even in slightly deeper leagues. Like the top fantasy guy, I think, from that group, starting with Thomas Sorber at 15, would have been Will Riley, who went 21.
Okay. I mean, Reynaud doesn't count, in my opinion, because that was like
I'm just looking to the end of the first round.
Oh, okay.
But obviously it gets ugly in the second as well.
Yeah. I was saying like Reynaud counts in the sense that he's actually, I think he's a good player and he was really good in fantasy, but also like he wasn't playing for a huge portion of the season. So,
right.
But yeah, again, we sort of mentioned it at the top, like a lot of these considerations are going to be like, for Dynasty, you should maybe take a shot on this guy for X, Y, or Z reason if you happen to be in a 30-team Dynasty league.
How much differently, if at all, would we be framing the Graves pick if he had gone here at 20 to San Antonio?
I don't know. I mean, how do you think you would think of it very differently?
I just say I think there would be a lot of, he's going to be a perfect San Antonio Spur, right? I think with Toronto, it's like, you see the vision. Those are the type of players they like. Yeah, we get that. But I think there would be a lot more general excitement. We would be doing the classic, like, how do we let the Spurs get this guy? He's going to be a perfect fit. He's so versatile defensively. I think there would have been a lot of excitement had that actually happened. I wonder how the Spurs valued him if there was any attempt, because I think a pretty clear fit for what they're trying to build.
I mean, I think there's a reason they took Jeremy Sohan. I think they think a particular type of guy fits next to Wemby, and it's a lot of the guys we're talking about. Graves. I mentioned Ejiofor, who I think is really interesting for them. Koa Pete, proven, just like been in USA basketball for a long time, like just knows the game. Yeah, we'll see though. Maybe they draft Lopez. I don't know. I still think like I would, if I'm the Spurs, I would rather take a guy who I think can help me potentially win an NBA title. Obviously, Lopez is not that guy.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, with San Antonio, you have this window in the short term, but you seemingly have a window that extends a decade, right? So you could justify anything. This is not we have to win in the next 2 to 3 years. I would also caution against, we see it all the time, right? Just this assumption that, one team is going to rule the NBA for X number of years. There will be a point at some point in Victor Wembanyama's career where we are talking about him wanting out of San Antonio. I don't know why that'll happen or what will provoke that, but it will happen.
He also had blood clot issues. Anything can happen to anybody.
Right.
He could like, there's a, if this went differently, there's a chance Wembanyama is not allowed to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like, he just can't do it because
Chris
of the blood
Bosh.
clots. Chris Bosh. We have the Spurs making their selection though. Let's see what Silver says.
They're going Jayden Quaintance.
I thought about throwing this name out. I just didn't. But look, obviously, like, there's a good chance he doesn't play a lot next year. He tore his ACL and had some knee issues before. And I think he did some limited work for teams and they did not come away feeling good about the knee. But if you are not concerned about him playing next year, or you think like we only care about him playing in like March and April and into the playoffs potentially, like we can shut him down for the first 6 months of the season, I think it makes a lot of sense. He's a freak athlete when he's healthy, obviously. His block rate was ridiculous as a freshman before he got to Kentucky. Really mobile. He is like a Mitchell Robinson level free throw shooter, which is a problem.
Yep.
But if you're thinking like, okay, maybe Wemby plays the 4 for 10 minutes a game or something like that, then yeah, sure. It's hard to argue with this.
No problem whatsoever with San Antonio being the team to take a shot on a guy like this. Like I know the medical reports have been muddy, I guess at best, but I don't get the sense that we're looking at like a career threatening type of injury, right? I think it's more like, all right, if you're asking this guy to be at 100% to start this year, maybe that could be a bit of an issue. I think we probably trust San Antonio's medical staff as much as just about anyone's. You're not drafting him, I don't think, with any expectation that he's a meaningful contributor this season. If you get some flashes, maybe later in the year, if he can come in and play 4 minutes in a desperation situation in a playoff game, great. I think you're taking the upside shot on what he could be 2 or 3 years from now. If nothing else, it's an asset grab as well, right? I mean, even the way people still talk about Topic, which I know he had another medical setback, but I always think there is some value in, all right, if maybe we don't love any of these options, let's take the guy that other teams might value most down the road. And then if we have to flip him, we can flip him.
Yeah. And the impression I got from the medical thing was like, it sounds like he maybe tried to rush back this year and then kind of messed up the knee more than it should have been. So there's like basically no sample from him at Kentucky, but at ASU, 9.8% block rate, 2.2% steal rate, and barely fouled, given the stocks to his stock to foul rate was excellent. Didn't rebound a lot necessarily, but so it's like, is he one of these guys that's selling out to block shots? Mm-hmm. That was which is interesting enough to mention. Mitchell Robinson was a guy early in his career who had an insane block rate, like historic, because he was selling out to block every single shot and then would give up defensive rebounds if he didn't block the shot, or offensive rebounds, I should say, if he didn't block the shot. But of course, like when a guy has that level of athleticism and what you can, you teach him like what shots to go for, what shots to not go for. And then when you have Wembanyama behind you or next to you or whatever, those mistakes get cleaned up.
I think a classic, you feel better about him because of the landing spot situation too. If Sacramento would have taken him in, I don't know, like at 34, if he had fallen there, I wouldn't think we'd be like super fired up about it. But I think a guy with a major injury question mark going to a situation where there is zero pressure, you don't feel like you're playing for your career or playing to, get that rookie option picked up or anything like that. I think that's kind of a peace of mind type of landing spot for him. So don't mind that whatsoever. We still have Philon on the board. We still have Cameron Carr on the board. I thought the toolsiness of Carr would have at least kept him inside the top 20. I thought he had a chance to sneak in to the back end of the lottery. Maybe that had worn off, since the NBA combine. With Philon, his over under for draft position was 17.5. I took the bait on the under on that, which was plus 120 earlier this morning. I'm surprised. We've seen teams, taking shots on these guards that are a little bit smaller, that have flaws. I think he is a pretty similar player in some ways to Christian Anderson. Maybe Anderson a little bit better of a passer, but I'm still surprised that he's on the board at this point. I think we've seen 2 or 3 teams that would have been good fits ended up passing on him.
Yeah, Philon is 100% a highlight tape guy.
Yes.
Like, he's a hoop mixtape guy. You see some stuff out of him where you're like, he is sending guys to the floor.
Right.
I think from what I understand, one of the reasons he went back to school for a second year was to be like, okay, they're like, this guy needs to add weight because he weighed 175 pounds. And then he came back to the combine this year and weighed 176 pounds.
He added weight.
And now they're like, can he gain weight? His shoulders aren't that wide. And another thing too, again, I don't want to be the guy who's like obsessed about the combine and all that stuff. You weigh 176 pounds and your lane agility is 9th percentile for your position. So you can't even move in front of these guys. And then if you happen to shift in front of somebody, they're just going to push you out of the way. I've seen some stuff that, like, he's not a horrible defender. I think he is one of those guys, kind of like Acuff, where, like, if the guy he's guarding, like, he cares about the guy he's guarding a lot. But yeah, he's a tougher sell than some of these other guys, I think.
I mean, over a 30% assist rate last season, which is higher than I would have guessed. Did see a jump in assists year over year. Just the raw numbers were 22 and 5, 1.2 steals, 3.5 rebounds, which for a guy that size is not terrible, but these are ultimately college numbers. I do think he's somebody that's harmed maybe by the Rob Dillingham, turning into a bust situation, right? Where it's like, if this hits, like, he kind of has to be, like, he kind of has to play that same style that he played at Alabama to be good. And it's like, all right, especially if you're being drafted now in the late first round, it's like, are you going to have an opportunity to play like that in the NBA? Can you fit into a system? Which I think is a major question mark. We have the pick in at 21. This is showing up as Detroit. This should be Memphis making the pick after the 2 trade backs. They picked up 5 second-round picks. Kareem Lopez, Mexican forward, off the board, Alex. Are you a Lopez guy?
No. The thing about Lopez is, like, no, I know it's the consensus is to kind of be low on Lopez, but there was a point, if you've been tapped into the draft process for like a couple months now, he was being like, people were saying like he could go 8, or 10. I thought that was insane. Clearly there is a reason he has fallen. And then the gamble that you're taking at pick, 21, is not that big of a deal. Another thing I posted on Twitter, you look at some of the history of like guys who've gone in the lottery who have been like these international guys. It's not a great history, but look, for his age, he has got like a legit NBA frame, 222 pounds, 6'8".
Yep.
I think he's not necessarily like a transition guy, but he's pretty decent in terms of like his ability to move. But right now he like doesn't have he's not a consistent 3-point shooter. He's one of these like sort of which is becoming archetype, the theoretical 3-and-D guy who can't actually shoot. He's kind of like that right now, but as a long-term project at this draft point, I'm all right with it.
So he ends up in Memphis. Landing spot wise, I mean, in terms of opportunity to develop right away, I think we like that. You can make a case either way, right? Like if he had gone 20 to San Antonio, I would be sitting here saying, well, this is great. He'll be able to sit back and learn in this great system and there'll be no pressure on him. The opposite of that is Memphis, where, you don't necessarily have veteran mentors. You don't necessarily have the, kind of proven system around you. Although again, Memphis has been really good at finding these guys late in the first round, early in the second, and turning them into good players. But he is the type of guy that I want to see next season, right? Like he's not just going to be buried on the bench. Like we are going to see a fair amount of Kareem Lopez on the court by default for the Grizzlies.
That's why it makes sense for the Grizzlies, because he's going to get those NBA reps that he very much needs. He needs to just be at the NBA speed as quickly as possible. But yeah, I mean, I think teams are just sort of like, lured in by the size and the ability to defend multiple positions. And like, he has some good feel, like he can pass a little bit and, a little bit of a jack of all trades in some respects.
So when I first started watching him, the comp that jumped out, and I like it less and less the more I've watched, is there a tiny bit of Avdia with the way he could get to the rim, with the way he could pass a little bit? If the answer is no, that's okay.
I think, he's, in theory, he's going to be a bigger guy than Avdia, and Avdia has been pretty big, and Avdia will bully his way to the rim.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. There were so many of these drives where he's kind of finishing with that shoulder that we saw so often from Avdia. I feel like, especially in that Spurs series.
My counter to that is like, is this just not like Keldon Johnson then?
Yeah.
Because Keldon Johnson is kind of like the really bad Denny Avdia in some ways.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, I've seen like maybe a less offensive tilted Kyle Kuzma, where it's not not necessarily like in a bad way, but just like, when he, like, because Kuzma when he cared was a pretty versatile offensively and like decent defender. So I want to see it. I want to see it in Memphis.
There was a time when Kyle Kuzma was a foundational piece of a championship Lakers team.
Yes.
Not that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we know anything on the investing front with Kareem Lopez? Do you know as any kind of funds that he's investing in? Do we know, is he tracking the S&P? Is he doing his own research?
Is he selling his Twitter account?
Yeah.
No, not as far as I know. Not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that could hurt him. We'll see. So Philly on the clock now at 22. No word that this pick will be traded. So we expect it to be Philly, Atlanta, New York. The LA Lakers would be on the clock at 25. Seeing a lot of shots of a longing Cameron Carr.
I think he has a good shot here. At going to 76ers. Now, like the issue with the 76ers is like, how much are you, like, what you have Joel Embiid. How much do you trust Joel Embiid to be healthy? Are you building around that? Are you thinking about him in any sense when you draft a guy? Mm-hmm. Is Cam Carr, I don't know. I mean, maybe you just draft Cam Carr and you're like, well, long-term, this is our Kelly Oubre, Paul George replacement.
Yeah.
And it's just that simple.
I think other than Maxey and Edgecombe, I don't think I'm planning around anything if I'm the Sixers. I mean, you're just kind of forced to play around Embiid. And I say around instead of through, just because it almost is an obstruction. I feel like, and we talked about this a lot during the playoffs, and it applies during the regular season too. It's like when you're playing 3 games, then you're missing 8, and then you're playing 2, and then you're missing 1. It's like they're a completely different team with and without Embiid. And I think it would behoove them to just pick a lane. Obviously, they would prefer that lane is just, hey, Embiid's healthy and we just have him out there and that's who we could be. But I felt like that really, really hurt them in the playoffs. Like Embiid coming back and then just being questionable game to game. We don't really know what to expect. All right, Maxey, you're going to have to take a 8 percentage point jump in usage tonight because we don't have Embiid. Like it's not sustainable whatsoever. And I don't think anybody's going to take the Embiid contract. I don't think you can just exile him at this point. They're going to run that into the ground. But I can't take the Sixers seriously as like a secondary contender right now.
No, really, the lane they should have picked was not signing Embiid to an early extension when he has the worst injury history in the NBA. That should have been the lane.
Yeah. I think there's a strong argument to support that. The pick is in. The wait is over for Labaron Philon Jr. going to.
I don't know about that.
I think similar player maybe in some ways to Tyrese Maxey. He has a mentor. I don't know. I mean, but is there a landing spot though where you would have said like this is a great spot for him?
I think any team that just like needed some sort of like, I don't know. To me, he's a guy where it's like you take the chance if your team's not that good, and you just like, oh, what if he pans out and he's just, you know, this sort of like shifty Allen Iverson thing like works out. Obviously, Iverson was a better defender. I'm not gonna actually go there. You know, again, this late in the draft, like you can draft a guy like Labaron Philon and be like, this is our 24-minute a game 6-man. We need more offense, etc. I would also think like if you're, again, this is the problem with Philly. Are you trying to be a legit playoff team? And if so, shouldn't you be drafting for a guy that can be on the court with your two best players? Or like like Edgecombe and Maxey. Is there a world in which Philon is closing games with those guys? You know, even like projecting forward, let's say Paul George is gone and Embiid is gone. And literally everybody's gone. It's just, I don't know. You know, like you would have had that opportunity with Cam Carr. You would have had that opportunity with Chris Sinak even.
Yeah.
Isaiah Evans, you know, I don't know.
I was going to say Koa Pete. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, is the like Jamal Crawford archetype? Like, is that what you're looking for? Is that close to your, I mean, that's not even close. That's probably your best case outcome, right? I mean, a guy who had an incredible career, had the longevity, never gained any weight, was extremely shifty, played on a lot of losing teams to begin his career. I will say that, but you know, turned into a guy who could close games. But no, you're right. I mean, I don't think you're closing with Edgecombe at the 3 and, you know, 6'2", 6'3" Tyrese Maxey and 176-pound Labaron Philon.
That's kind of what I'm saying. You know, it's like this is not a situation that, like, this is almost like what we were talking about with Detroit. They drafted Ebuka Okorie because Cade's not really a point guard.
Yeah.
And so you can have Okorie on the court and closing games. You know, you could have drafted Philon too. I mean, they probably shouldn't have, but they could have, and he would have been on the court with their best players because he's not positionally overlapping.
Yeah. I think we're late enough that this is, we're just take a shot territory if you're Philly.
I agree.
And if it turns out that the ceiling is he's just a solid guard off the bench, you're fine with that. You know, I don't know if you can really plan for the future. I mean, again, you know you have the two guards that you like, but I'm not drafting necessarily to try to find a guy that I feel like, all right, we can lock this guy in as a future starter at 22, you know? Even if you end up just getting a 6-man out of it, I think that's a win. I mean, history would tell you that's a huge win.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think if you're a team with a franchise cornerstone, you should be you do have to make fit decisions around that cornerstone.
I mean, Philly is just in a brutal spot. How many years are left on the Embiid deal? It's not even autofilling anymore when I search this. It's been a while. God. So 2 more years and then a $67 million player option in 28-29.
Breaking news, he will be taking that.
I can see him picking that up.
It's like the Ryan Russillo meme, you know, he will. Reporting right now, he will be taking.
Yeah. That's actually longer than I thought. I thought it was one more in the player.
It's a horrible contract. It's truly atrocious. It's malpractice, honestly, that they signed him and maybe got Daryl Morey fired along with Jared McCain trade.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know what to say about this. I mean, the Labaron Philon pick has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about with Embiid. That's independent of this conversation. But I have vowed to not go down the Sixers, you know, Sixers to win the East. You know, I will not do it. I will not do it. It's impossible.
You know, as well as I mean, we talked a lot of playoffs. You know, I was on the Sixers every game when they were playing Boston. I was like, this team is actually good when they have their guys, and they have their guys. But again, like there's a difference between in a playoff series, you know, they have their guys versus I'm going to bet the 76ers to make noise in the East.
It's just the problem is the playoffs are too long. You know, it's not,
they're long.
You know, it's not, hey, can Embiid stay healthy for 2 weeks? It's like, you got to be healthy from mid-April until mid-June. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, I don't, I'm sure they've explored ways to get off that. I mean, like the idea of even like stretching that, it's like you're basically just taking on like almost a max salary and stretch for 4 years.
Right.
I don't know. I can't get there, and it sucks because I absolutely love Tyrese Maxey. I think
Yeah,
I've decided that if LeBron retires ever, I will transition to being a Tyrese Maxey guy.
Okay.
But there's just not any upside there right now. Like Tyrese Maxey cannot win in this situation.
Absolute purgatory. That's what the 76ers are in. The 76ers are in they're in purgatory. Yeah.
Self-inflicted purgatory. I will say I don't root against Joel Embiid. I know a lot of people do. I would love for him to have a Kawhi Leonard season, just out of nowhere. It's like, oh, he's healthy. He's played 40 games in a row somehow. How has this happened? Kawhi's injury situation was always just like weird and mysterious. Like Embiid's is very well documented.
Yeah, and Kawhi is actually like, obviously he's big and strong. He's not 7 foot. Embiid is just massive and has had injury issues from the start of his career.
Yes.
Like his entire lower body, foot, knee, everything. It's bad.
It's actually a miracle that he's had as good of a career as he has.
I say that all the time. Like he should never. It
should have been Greg Oden.
Yep. And the fact that he was an MVP, no one, I don't know. Like, I think he was drafted with the expectation of like, hey, this guy could be really good. I don't think did people really think Joel Embiid was going to be MVP of the NBA? Upside? Like,
I'm trying
really?
to think back. Like, he was just if you watch him at Kansas, he was a totally different player than he is now. Like, there was no, like the sheer amount of like mid-range jumpers and the amount of weight that he added, like he looked like a different dude. He was so skinny at Kansas. And that's like, he did draw Greg Oden comps for a number of reasons, injuries aside. But I think the idea was more like, nobody was saying he was going to be an MVP, but it was like, he could be a defensive player of the year, dominant rim protector. It was never like, this guy's probably going to average like 34 points per game. Like that would have sounded completely out of the question. Like 25 points a game would have been crazy.
Yeah, we got another pick here for the Hawks.
We do. Zuby Ejiofor off the board from St. John's. He goes 23 to the Atlanta Hawks. I think the right type of zone for a very specific type of player in Zuby Ejiofor.
I find myself liking Ejiofor, but again, it's like everybody likes these just like super physical, just switchable. And again, what's the issue? He can't shoot and he's undersized. But look, I think next to Okongwu, I do like this because Okongwu, I think kind of still has something to prove as a floor spacer, but is theoretically a floor spacer and kind of switchable. And now you add Ejiofor, who, again, probably not going to end up turning into a shooter, but fits your play style as like this intense defensive team.
Yep.
And it just gives you some optionality at the position.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see on the screen here, a little bit undersized, but certainly makes up for it with the effort, the physicality. Definitely get some Isaiah Stewart vibes from him.
Oh yeah.
Not a team that has a ton of front court depth. Again, for as well as Atlanta finished the season, there was a point where it looked like they might beat the Knicks. I mean, they gave the Knicks the best run of anybody, I guess, by default in the playoffs, and did that with Mohamed Gay and Jock Landale backing up Onyeka Okongwu and Jonathan Kuminga as your backup four. They added Aaron Wiggins, who can slide up to the four. Kind of feels more like a three to me. The way he plays, I don't necessarily think he's going to spend a ton of time there. So I think this is one where I typically don't love trying to fill position needs on draft night. As you get later in the draft, I think that becomes a lot more excusable, especially for these playoff type of teams. So no problem with this pick at all. I think they kind of need some of that defensive intensity.
Yeah, and he can he guard 3 through 5.
Yeah,
maybe some 2s depending on the situation. Again, very much a role guy. He's not being drafted for like breakout star upside. This really fits the mold of like he fits a good team's identity.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad that teams are now more willing to draft players like this. He's a classic senior. Like you could just watch a highlight, a 1 minute highlight, and you'd be like, "There's no way this guy's a freshman." He plays like a senior. He is a senior. He's an older player, a reasonable free throw shooter which is kind of surprising. I feel like guys like him are typically horrendous free throw shooters. He was, solid 70%, very low variance between 70 and 72% his final 3 years at St. John's. Some thoughts of potentially developing a 3-point shot. I would not necessarily count on that. Although the free throw percentage portends that maybe it could be just enough of a threat.
Yeah, this isn't like, I mean, I think anybody that shoots 70% from the free throw line on legit volume over a big enough sample can be a stretch.
Yeah.
Has stretch potential. So yeah, man. I mean, again, these are the type of picks you like in this range, which is just like your absolute worst is he's going to set a tone for your team and be a culture guy, like on the floor, at least a culture guy.
Yeah.
And then in a best case scenario, he's a bit of a spacer, and then he, like he's, then he turns into a starter,
right?
A bona fide starter.
Ironically, would have been a really fun fit, I think, for the Knicks. St. John's connection aside, especially as a potential Mitchell Robinson replacement. Knicks, by the way, are on the clock, but did reportedly trade this pick to the LA Lakers. So still waiting to see what they're getting back. Likely, I would imagine no more than 2 second-round picks to just move up one spot. But if you're watching along live with the coverage showing the Knicks are on the clock, this will be the Lakers pick at 24. Any guesses where LA is going here?
Cam Carr?
I don't. Is there anyone else that would be truly worth trading up for?
I have heard. I got a lot of like Isaiah Evans because for spacing, but like if you're going to draft Isaiah Evans, just draft Cam Carr. Like that's how I feel about it. I think he makes sense for them. I mean, I don't know if they would do like a Henry Vasar, like, oh, do we need a floor spacing 5 element? We Ayton sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Extreme draft for need.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if they're like, I don't know if you like make the move for Sanak. It's interesting, right? But it's like, this team is so win now. I think they need guys. I don't know. It's possible. It's possible.
I think they're probably surprised that Carr's on the board. I would think like, I would think there would have been a point like 5 picks ago though, where you're trying to move up and seeing like, oh, okay, he's still there at 16. He's still there at 18. If they're that locked in on Cam Carr, would you wait this long? I don't know. Maybe they've been rebuffed, but we will see. Adam Silver is back on the podium. There it is.
Yeah. I like it, man. I mean, I think this is sort of the opposite of the archetype I was joking about, where it's like, oh, there are all these theoretical 3-and-D players who can't shoot. Like Cameron Carr is the rare archetypal 3-and-D player who can't play defense. But it's one of those things where it's like people think it's effort. Like his tools are ridiculous. The wingspan. He has like a compare. Basically, his like 2 comparisons for wingspan are Jalen Williams, J-Dub from the Thunder, and Cedric Coward, who also had like ridiculous. Basically, he has the exact measurements of Cedric Coward, and so I think that's a lot of what you're hoping for if you are the Lakers, who just like you can't have enough floor spacing around LeBron James, and Luka Doncic and some of these other guys.
Yeah, I think pretty similar college stat profile to Cedric Coward as well. I mean, Coward a little bit more there as a passer. Obviously you'd like to see much better steal numbers from a guy with that kind of length at the college level. Played a ton of minutes, didn't really play at all first couple of years at Tennessee, transfers in, and all of a sudden, he's basically the number 1 option for Baylor. But I think maybe more so than any player we've seen come off in this range, a true could go in any direction. This could go pretty well. This could also go completely terribly. And again, you could say that about a lot of guys who are drafted in the late first round, but I think this type of athletic profile, right? Like many teams over the years have fallen in love with the, super rangy, super long, but there's a catch. It's very, very interesting for him that it is the defense though. Usually it's the shooting.
But he had a great combine. I mean, they were just showing you on the screen. Like he was one of those guys who I thought he was going to go higher than this. Like, I think there were, after the combine, there were some mocks that had him in the lottery because he played that well. But yeah, it is one of those things, like watching the tape of Baylor, not really featuring on offense that much. Like, it's a lot of Yesufu, who was actually, he was maybe going to be in this draft and then pulled out of the draft. He was the guy absorbing all the usage for Baylor. And Cam Carr was doing, like, I think a lot of what people think Cam Carr will do in the NBA to start his career, which is like he would come off some curls and he'd hit some, he hit some standstill threes, and in transition, obviously he's dangerous, pump fake and drive. Like, there are so many reasons to like Cam Carr. And I think, but teams must have been really worried about this guy not locking in on defense. Like, there must have been real concerns if he slipped this far.
I will say we're looking at a potential future dunk contest participant. Yep. I like that. Maybe even as a rookie with how that event has been trending. So if nothing else, we do have that. I mean, that the Lakers are in win now mode. We know that. Yeah. I think this is still a team that could look very different, by the time we get to the start of the season. I still would like to see a full run with this group. I've just kind of stopped trying to project LeBron regression at this point. He's obviously a different player than he was even 3 or 4 years ago, but I think there were plenty of flashes of, like, could be a top 10 to 15 guy in the NBA over the course of a 2-month playoff run. I still don't think we were looking at a finals run last year, though. Even with a healthy Luka, would have made for a very interesting series. I think against OKC, that was about as close of a sweep as you'll see, as far as the Lakers, like, being in all of those games despite being undermanned in the second half. All this is to say, I don't know that Cameron Carr is going to be a dependable rotation piece right away. I mean, we'll see what happens with Hachimura. We'll see what happens with Jared Vanderbilt. Some of these guys they've probably had to rely on a little bit more than they would like in the case of Vanderbilt. The Jake LaRavia minutes could be up for grabs, I suppose.
They could be. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. It's tough because they, like, 3-and-D players don't grow on trees. There were not really any guys available who are 3-and-D, in this range for the Lakers. But because, like, Luka's not a good defender, Reeves is not a good defender. LeBron is fine depending on the matchup, but is going to get burned in against, like, actual movement. And then you're starting, like, Marcus Smart, who has to guard everybody on the other team because Ayton is not good. And you bring in Jackson Hayes for some stuff. So it's like, again, I'm fine with Cam Carr because it solves a shooting thing. And then if you think you can teach him defense, then he does become the guy who makes the most sense for you if you think that you can get him locked in on that end of the court.
What's going to happen with Ayton this offseason, by the way? $8 million player option.
Oh.
Like, that's not an auto pickup.
Yeah, that might be like a decline into a 2+1, for, like, I don't know what. I don't know. That's such a low number. I mean, the Lakers need him because he's a warm body at center.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think he's that much better than Jackson Hayes, if we're being honest. But again, you can't just run it. You can't run into a season with Jackson Hayes as your starting center and Maxi Kleber as your backup. You just can't do that. So,
right. I mean, I watch a lot of Lakers. Like, if you can't swing, I know there's been talk of, like, is this a win-win if they were to swap Reeves for Darryn? I like that for Detroit. I don't know that I love that for the Lakers. It's not terrible. It's an upgrade, certainly over DeAndre Ayton. I just really like Austin Reeves and would not necessarily want to get off him for that. Like, are you better off just finding a way to get rid of Ayton if he picks up the option, or just letting him walk if he doesn't? I'm looking at the best free agent centers out there would be, like, Yusuf Nurkic, Zach Collins. Like, is that really that big of a step down? I would like to say no.
Nurkic is not that big of a step down. He's not.
No,
there are going to be a lot of games that I think Nurkic is just straight up better than Ayton.
Yeah, I agree. I think you could just grab a couple bargain bin centers and ride this sounds crazy. Is it ride the hot hand? I don't know. Ride the warm body at the time.
We've seen teams do something like that before. That's why like Vasar should have probably been in consideration for LA.
Yeah.
Just because like I'm not like a big Henry Vasar guy or anything like that. He's kind of a stiff. Like if the shooting doesn't translate, he's just not an NBA player or whatever. Not a great defender, but like I don't know. He's close to. I think he's 7 feet tall or close to it, and he can shoot the rock. And you clear out the floor, like because that's a look that the Lakers don't really have. Is like a floor spacing 5 look.
Yeah.
But we're getting into the weeds. So whose pick is this now? Detroit's? No, the Knicks.
This is the Knicks at 25. We have Adam Silver announcing the Bennett Stirtz trade.
Welcome
Why do we
to
do
last
this?
week, buddy?
Why must we do this?
It would be better if he actually like had his phone and he was like,
Yeah.
oh, just got
it actually
this.
would be way better. Sergio De Larrea, is the pick for the New York Knicks at 25.
I don't know if we have a graphic for him.
I don't think we do. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean De Larrea. This is interesting. This is a fun pick for the Knicks. I think watching him play, he is really I will say one thing. He measured really well. He didn't show up to the combine. I think they measured him later or they flew to I don't know how any of that stuff works. They got him later. He measured really well. A lot better than people thought. When you watch him play, I don't know how to describe it other than he's just like a classic Euro guy who's like 6'6", where it's just like it's IQ, it's decisiveness. He can shoot 40% on threes. Again, relatively good athlete. But yeah, when you watch him play, it's like very quick decision maker. He's not holding the ball. I think that's the appeal. It's just like this guy can hit threes. He doesn't hold the ball. He's got good size. Sure.
Yeah, I know was going back and forth on staying in the draft or pulling his name out. I think there was some talk of potentially having a guarantee. Probably not going to be a contributor in year one, but I think it's a good spot to be as the New York Knicks to be able to take shots on guys like this. These are not players typically that are taken by bad teams that feel any sort of urgency to add win now pieces. And I think you often get a discount, one, because of the international thing, right? Like there's, obviously teams are scouting international players better than they ever have, but there's still people in my front office don't know who this guy is, right? Like I didn't watch him in the NCAA tournament. I think there's usually like especially as you get later in the first round, like a 5 to 10 pick discount on the international guy that allows these teams that don't have the urgency to swoop in and oftentimes get a bargain.
Yeah, and I think for the Knicks, you look at their depth chart. Obviously, they just won a title. Like their depth chart is fine, but they do have kind of a backcourt situation where it's like Landry Shamet and Jordan Clarkson are playing real minutes for them. And if you are thinking like, can we replace Landry Shamet and Jordan Clarkson with Sergio De Larrea? I think that's actually like a pretty good. That's like a good bet to make.
I mean, this could be kind of the second coming of like a younger Pablo Prigioni type of situation for the Knicks.
As long as it's not Landry Fields, I think.
Yeah. Is he a GM somewhere? What was he a GM?
Hawks, maybe?
Yeah. I think he got all the way up to GM.
Yeah.
Kind of amazing that the Knicks were able to win the finals in the way that they were with pretty much terrible bench production for that entire series.
Yeah.
Like Miles McBride was outright awful, I thought, for most of the playoffs and specifically in the finals. Like Shamet had, was it game 1 or game 2? I think he hit a couple threes. After that was a glaring negative on the offensive end. So there is room for improvement with that bench. I don't think any of those guys are necessarily long-term pieces. Like there's no player there who to me is going to significantly improve as their career goes along. Like Jordan Clarkson obviously is what he is. Landry Shamet is what he is. Mitchell Robinson, if they keep him, very much is what he is. Maybe McBride is a guy you could talk yourself into developing into something a little bit more, but again, pretty discouraged by what we saw from him just coming in and immediately chucking up threes and then checking out of the game. So, it feels like the Knicks are in this catbird spot, which they are. I think partially because the rest of the East is kind of not disintegrating, but just nobody's standing out to me other than Boston in the Eastern Conference, but the Knicks could get better. That's for sure. I think the starting five is one of the best that we've seen in a while in terms of how they play together, how everybody fits, but it's not the type of roster that you would talk about in the same vein as OKC or San Antonio, where you got a guy like Aaron Wiggins who's like not even in the rotation.
I mean, that's the bet they made, right? Which is just like, we're going to acquire all these guys and we're going to have a fantastic starting five, and we're going to deal with the rest, you know? We're going to deal with having a bad bench. We're going to try to find some guys who's going to sign for the minimum because they want to play in New York, and we have a title contending team. And so I think, De Larrea, Isaiah Evans was probably in contention for them. But yeah, I agree with you. They don't have a lot of young, like, I kind of like Tyler Kolek, but like, what's he going to turn into? Sohan, they have, his career is probably closer to being over than he is a rotation player. Huck Porty has his moments, but yeah, De La Rey, nice pick.
Jeremy Sohan closed the clinching game of the NBA Finals. Lest we forget.
Trouble.
Yeah.
If
I had to bet any team right now to win the title, or to win a conference, it would be the New York Knicks. 3-1 to win the East. They are 7-1 right now to win the finals. As you know, I've been workshopping this take on VSiN since the Giannis trade broke. I think the Knicks are the biggest winners of the Giannis deal. I think Giannis not going to Boston. I think Boston destroying its relationship with Jaylen Brown could potentially knock them out, depending on what they have to do. I'm not all that high on Miami quite yet. We'll see how they fill out the roster. I think I've seen a lot of reaction to like the Bam Giannis duo as if we are pairing like two top 10 players together. You and I both like Bam.
Yep.
He's a very nice player. I don't think in this era of the NBA where you have to have depth and you can't just build a 2 or even a 3-man team anymore. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, certainly you could absolutely get away with that and just have Eric Dampier and Mike Bibby in your starting lineup if you're the 2011 Miami Heat. I just don't think you could do that anymore. And we could go down the list of all these other secondary teams in the Eastern Conference. Like, does the Pistons adding Tyler Hero, are you going to pick them over the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals? I don't think so.
I agree. Like, I like Bam too. If Hero and Bam were as good as people thought they wouldn't have traded for Giannis because they would be really good. You know what I mean? Like, Bam very often, and I hate to say it, like, he is not a number 2 option on offense.
No.
Maybe he is if your number 1 is Giannis. I really don't think so, especially because he can't reliably shoot the 3. Like, he's up and down. Like, he shot like 15% for like a month from distance, and he's just not consistent as a jump shooter and all this other stuff. But yeah, I agree with you on the Knicks. I mean, what is it? 8 straight years now we haven't had back-to-back title winners. So like maybe the finals bet is not what I like, but like to win the Eastern Conference again, did you say 3-1? Yeah.
3-1.
I mean, fire that up.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as always, there will be some catastrophic injuries likely that derail all these takes. But even if you told me Giannis and Bam stay healthy, I'm still not that high on the Heat. And that's like the number one thing for me. Is like, we haven't seen Giannis remotely healthy for a playoff run since 2021? Was that the last? And even in that run, when they won the finals, he wasn't healthy.
Yeah, obviously some of that's bad luck, but he's had that like knee tendonitis or whatever he has for a while. Like, that's not new.
Terrace Reed out of UConn is the pick for the Denver Nuggets at 26. I don't believe we have a graphic for him either, and that's fine. I mean, another just classic college guy, a guy who I feel like typically would go in the second round. There's a reason we don't have a graphic for him. If you watch the NCAA tournament at all, hard not to be just blown away by the athleticism, the just want to from Terrace Reed. I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the platitudes that we threw out there for Zuby Ejiofor very much apply to Terrace Reed.
Terrace Reed is 6'10" with a 7'4" wingspan. He is 264 pounds and had 88th percentile lane agility for centers. Like,
dog.
Yeah, beast.
Big time
beast.
Dog.
I think he stole Jalen Duren's powers, possibly, at some point during last season. I really like him as like this point in the draft, getting him. I am surprised the Nuggets took him.
Just
'Cause I
not
thought this would
a
be like a
player
co
archetype they typically target.
I thought this would be like a Koa Pete situation where it's
Yeah.
like, well, we have Jokic who's at center and under the he's doing all obviously he can stretch the floor. So like you have this is like I thought this would be the type of team where it's like we can draft Koa Pete because he doesn't shoot threes because he can make sense with Jokic. Again, because it's like maybe he could be in a closing lineup with Jokic. It seems like they have for a while wanted. Is this being traded?
It's being traded. It's being traded. The San Antonio Spurs will get Tarris Reed. They will send number 35 and 2 future seconds to Denver.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Okay.
That's good work by the San Antonio Spurs.
Yep.
Wow, 2 centers. You play the long game with Quaintance and you play the short game with Tarris Reed.
Just loading up to terrorize Chet Holmgren.
I love this. It's really, I think it's smart by San Antonio.
Yeah, I think you do the long-term upside play with Quaintance. You do the immediate can give us 6 good minutes in a playoff game guy in
maybe
Tarris
more.
Reed.
I don't know, man. I think he's legit. I understand I understand that there's going to be some okay, he can't shoot. He's not a great free throw percentage guy, all this stuff. He did all this posting up in college. I don't care. It's just obviously he's not going to post up in the NBA. You can if you need him to because he's done it. But just getting a legit imposing center next to Wemby is good.
He just bodies dudes. And I oftentimes I would say, okay, I'd like to see you do that at the NBA level. I think he's going to do that at the NBA level, especially against other backup centers. I mean, there's a little Reggie Evans, a little Quincy Acey, the nastiness to his game. It's not just, I'm bigger and more athletic, I'm just going to politely dunk this. It's I'm going to slam this through the rim as hard as I possibly can. No, I love this. And when I say 6 good playoff minutes, I mean as a rookie. I'm not saying long term. I'm saying this is a guy you could slide in if you need to.
Yeah. And this was a guy I thought I was kind of surprised wouldn't go higher, but now he's gone. He's gone in the spot that I think he might rise to. I think it would have been shocking if he went 20th, but I think he did kind of have this ceiling of 25 that he's reached. Makes a lot of sense.
Another older player, much like Ejiofor, 4-year college guy, as you would expect. But again, I don't hold that against him in the same way that I would a different player type. You're what? No. We know what you are. I don't care if you're 24 or 19. That's not going to change.
Yeah, because he's the old school bruising center type that teams are well, he doesn't have upside, so he'll stay in college, he get his NIL money, and then when he's ready, he comes out. Yeah. And I think this kind of guy, you have Dylan Harper and you have Stephon Castle and you have De'Aaron Fox, unfortunately, at this point. He can set monster screens to get those guys free. You know what I mean? Wembanyama's not a good screen center. He's too narrow. He's too gangly. He's not setting wide screens. Reed's going to be able to free these guys up, almost like a Steven Adams, where it's Steven Adams' value is not just the offensive rebounding and all this stuff. It's the fact that he can set screens.
I think that's a really, really good comp. Really good comp. While we see some shots of Isaiah Evans and Chris Sinak being consoled right now in the green room, are you officially ready to? Are we just going into De'Aaron Fox is one of the worst contracts in basketball? The Spurs absolutely have to get rid of him. Obviously the finals were a disaster, but this feels like it developed very, very quickly, almost a little too quickly.
Well, first of all, I will say I thought the ankle injury excuse was used for far too long.
Yeah. He played too many good games after the ankle to use that.
Yeah. And then he was taking he would just get in his head. He's I'm taking a 16-footer here. No one can stop me from doing it. It's I don't know. I'll put it this way. I mean, there's no way they would have traded for De'Aaron Fox if they knew what they were getting with Dylan Harper.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
No way. Ever.
And how many situations are there where you trade for De'Aaron Fox? You're okay, we have in the short term potentially our number 1 option, because at the time of the trade, Wembanyama obviously was clear where things were headed, but he was not the player that he was this past year. Then it's okay, we have our firm number 2, our veteran. there's just not that many situations where not one but two other guards on the roster somehow end up developing into better players than you within their first and second year.
And nobody thought Castle would be this good either. And people, obviously, Castle is still polarizing.
Dude, I'm all in.
Sure. Yeah. Still polarizing, though. Like, I just like, and I did not hate the move for De'Aaron Fox, because I'm like, Wembanyama's this good. You get a win now, guy. Yes, he's not a great 3-point shooter. Wembanyama's shooting the three, so you space out for Fox, who's a good athlete. Yeah, kind of unfortunate. He's going to be, people on Twitter are like, well, just trade him. You got to trade Fox. To who, man? To who after what we saw? You know what I mean? So it's going to be hard to get off that contract, but
they also didn't even give up that much to get De'Aaron Fox. I guess the contract is now the bigger issue, but I don't think it's going to be as big of an albatross as they might think. Like it's similar to the discussion we had about Hero earlier, where it's like, okay, even at a depressed value, like I think there are enough teams that would still look at De'Aaron Fox and be like, we really want this guy. This guy would be a huge upgrade over what we're currently dealing with. That it's not going to be like they're just totally saddled with that.
I mean, the Pistons, for example, or like the Timberwolves, or like any of these teams we were talking about for like Tyler Hero may also want to consider acquiring De'Aaron Fox, depending on the price.
I also don't think the ship has sailed on De'Aaron Fox. Just like, I'm not just ready to say like this is who he's going to be in any big playoff series. Like this is really the first taste of anything like that. We have a pick on the board at 27. Chris Sinak heading to the Boston Celtics.
Love it, man. This is a fit, a great combination of fit and upside. I know that there are plenty of, the reason he has slipped this far is because he takes a lot of bad shots and people do not like his decision making. And there's just like, he's not locked in, as the kids say. But look, at the size, like he really stands out on film when you see him like move, when you see him shoot, even if they're bad shots, has the potential to be like a, sort of the 3-and-D center / power forward archetype that so many teams covet for obvious reasons.
Had some very, very bad mid-range jumper misses at the end of the NCAA tournament. That has stuck with me a little bit. I think there is a little bit to be desired in terms of the intensity, like you mentioned. But again, to take a chance on a guy with that kind of length, I think what do we pick 27 here with Boston? Completely fine with that. Numbers are not going to jump off the page whatsoever. Was part of a talented Houston team, played only 24 minutes per game last season as a freshman. So you're not going to get fired up seeing 9.5 points and 8 rebounds, whatever it was. Didn't put up, huge block or steal numbers, but a developmental project certainly for the Boston Celtics. And I think somebody who's probably a little bit further along than, most of these guys that you would say is a true project. Like this was a guy who I think by some services was a top 5 recruit in the class. If not, he was somewhere in that like 5 to 12 range.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if you're Boston, your center situation right now is Nemanja Keita and Vucevic and Garza, and your power forward situation, other than Tatum, is like Jordan Walsh and Sam Hauser, and I think like Mazzulla might be extremely frustrated by Sinak.
Yeah,
but that's also the reason why you might draft a guy like Sinak, because you think if we get a good coach. If we coach this guy in the right way,
right,
he's going to exceed his potential, which I think is like very similar to like the Khalil Ware case with Miami when he was they were like, well, we'll get him under Spoelstra, and then Spoelstra hated him, which is going to happen. But again, you're picking at pick, what was that? 27? Sure.
Yeah. Well, and I will say this about Boston, obviously a win now team. Joe Mazzulla not afraid to play these guys, partially out of necessity over the last couple of years. That's been a big part of it, of course, but a lot of these guys, I mean, the Baylor Shilermans, the Jordan Walshes, the Hugo Gonzalez, like we were watching the draft. We go through and you're like, all right, sure. Yeah. We'll see what he does. And then they end up playing, they have a month where they play 25 minutes a game.
And then they become untouchable for Giannis.
Yeah. That, by the way, what are we doing? To put Jaylen Brown on the table publicly and then not get the trade done because you wouldn't include Hugo Gonzalez and or Baylor Shireman.
Yeah. I don't know. That's insane to me.
It's crazy.
What's more likely? Those guys are out of the league in 4 years, or they're starters?
Probably out of the league. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
It's just it's Giannis, man. You got to be willing to put it on the table. And again, it's because of the Jaylen Brown thing. If all of this was done under the table, if we never even knew that Jaylen Brown would be part of this, if we didn't know that Boston was involved, we found out after, oh, the Celtics were actually pushing and they wouldn't put Hugo Gonzalez on the table. That's why the deal didn't get done. I guess you could live with that, but to know that you are actively destroying your relationship with Jaylen Brown over Hugo Gonzalez and Baylor Shireman, to me, is insane. Like, if you're going to go to the trouble of Jaylen Brown knowing that he's a big piece in this trade, I just feel like you have to get the trade done.
Let me ask you this, though. Did Jaylen Brown ruin the relationship first?
It's possible. It's possible. And I have seen some of that, maybe they've known all along they have to move on from him, and this was the way to do it. And I think they're probably going to do it anyway now with a separate move. So yeah, that's likely part of it. But I still think if I'm Boston, my first option is keeping Jaylen Brown with Jason Tatum. Like, is there a deal out there where let's say you trade Jaylen Brown to Atlanta, Portland, wherever, any of these teams that are rumored, like, is there a deal out there where whatever the return is for Jaylen Brown, you feel better about your chance to win the championship next season than you would with just second team All NBA Jaylen Brown on the roster?
No, especially not if like Giannis was an option. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Brown had those like Twitch streams and he was saying stuff, and I don't know, like, I'm with you in that I was a little bit surprised, like, over the past, I don't know, this like the Jalen's, are they going to break up dialogue has kind of been going on for like 4 or 5 years. Just as like a low, quiet hum. And I felt myself resisting that because I'm like, why would you do that? But my assumption is that just like behind the scenes, there must have, like, Jaylen Brown must have been clear that he was not interested in this long term.
I think he's probably been a very good soldier, and I think it's probably a very business relationship that he has with Jason Tatum, which is fine. That's probably how most of these relationships go. But this idea that these guys are like best pals and just want to team up and win as many titles as possible, I don't think was ever really the case. All right, we have at least one of my favorite prospects in Joshua Jefferson off the board to Minnesota at 28. So go off.
Well, yeah, do you want to go off? You said he was one of your favorite prospects.
He is the type of prospect that I really, really want to work out. A very, very fun player at the college level, kind of a do-everything guy, 4-year player, played at St. Mary's, went over to Iowa State, was, just a classic, putting up a ton of numbers, triple-double type of threat on any given night. A little bit of a, where is he going to play exactly at the NBA level type of guy, very big body, comes in at about 6'8", but another guy that I worry about, partially because of where he's being drafted and just the type of prospect that he is. He was never going to go, in the high lottery, but it's like, can you now settle into being a role player after kind of being the do everything guy at Iowa State? Like, is that the way you have to play? It's very, very different than a Labaron Philon. Like, can you not be Allen Iverson at all times? But like, Jefferson is a guy that's like pretty much everything kind of ran through him at Iowa State. It's like, how do you adjust now to being the 9th man or the 10th man in the NBA?
Good question. I think, the landing spot is interesting in Minnesota because he's going to have to play. Because they don't have much of a bench. Obviously like a little positionally redundant, but he's a backup. Like, so we can say like, oh, with Jagan McDaniels and Naz Reid now, he's a little positionally redundant. They need some backups there, obviously, and he's multi-position, can do a lot. I think just a really interesting connective guy, potentially. Some two-way stuff. I know that, athletically he did not measure well in terms of like, he can't jump that high, and his lanes agility and all that stuff was not great. Maybe he's heavy. I kind of felt like he played a little lighter than I expected. I was watching the tape like before, like, cause that's what I had heard about him. I'm like, well, he's got all this intangible stuff and he can do a little bit of everything, but he's kind of heavy. And then I watched him, I'm like, he moves pretty well for how people are kind of saying he's big. So, yeah, a really interesting player.
Yeah, I feel like every time I watched Iowa State, I was just seeing like different phases of his game that I did not necessarily realize were there. It's like he's got kind of a crafty like post game. He's not afraid to bully guys. He can pivot. He can hit the reverse fades. a lot of the, you hear a lot about the passing with him, and a lot of it is these like kind of gets trapped under the rim, and then he throws like a looping pass behind a defender. I mean, it's impressive, honestly. It was yeah. And body style wise, not athleticism wise, but body style wise, kind of a little like Miles Bridges-y, I guess, is kind of the guy that came to mind.
Thick, but not like slowing him down a ton. I mean, Bridges is kind of a freak athletically.
Yeah,
but,
right.
I mean, obviously, some of the question is just like, how is that athleticism going to look against real NBA competition? Is some of it a mirage against bad college teams? And can he shoot? And I'm like relatively optimistic that he can shoot. I mean, obviously, like he was doing a lot for Iowa State, like, and was still firing up threes and hitting them at 35%.
Yeah.
Free throw shooting for his career has been relatively stable in like the low to mid 70s, which has like kind of become the new baseline for like this guy's stretch potential. And yeah, just an IQ guy. Makes sense as like you're trying to win a championship. We need guys who are very serious, who know how to play basketball.
Yeah.
You take Joshua Jefferson.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what the game looks like. Can he play that same style? It's a lot of like, all right, off the dribble, can't beat my guy. I'm going to start backing him down 16 feet from the basket. And often he was able to get to the rim at the college level. Like, I just don't think he's going to have opportunities or have license to do that in the NBA. I think there is some kind of top of the key facilitation. You see a lot of, hitting guys, cutting from the corner, stuff like that. I mean, the vision is what stands out, I think, probably most.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some like, it might depend on the lineup, but like if you're playing Naz Reid at center,
yeah,
you can do some pick and roll stuff with Jefferson where it's like, Jefferson sets a pick, rolls into the lane, and the floor is spaced for him. He catches it and then makes a decision with the ball when he's standing in the middle of the lane. He can pass it. He can shoot it. He's just a smart guy in that aspect. So, maybe he's not like the best fit playing with like Gobert on the floor necessarily, but like you're going to be playing a lot of Naz at center now. You get rid of Randall. So there could be some interesting lineup combinations here.
There is a little Julius Randle, I think, to his game. But it's like he does the Randall head down thing and then somehow makes a sick pass out of it, which Randall often did not. But another like kind of body style type of comp, I guess, like the physicality.
Yeah. Jefferson actually takes a mental note of where his teammates are before he puts his head down and where the help will be was coming from. And then realizes, hey, this guy's going to be open. Or if that guy rotates, the guy in the corner is going to be open. Yeah. It's But
it was a lot of possessions that looked like they were going to end badly that ended beautifully.
Yeah. And really some of the passing stuff like really stands out. Like, like you mentioned, top of the key, like reading where he knows what help guys are going to move in certain spots. Again, not a super athlete, but when he was in transition, like head up,
slinging one-handed passes too, which is just a confidence thing that I like to see.
Yeah.
So Cleveland was on the clock at 29. They have traded this to the Sacramento Kings. Reportedly, the Kings, and we'll have our announcement in a moment, are looking at Alex Karaban from UConn.
I guess. You need a shooter.
It doesn't get a whole lot less Kings than this. I mean, this is not a Kings player.
I know. Well, look, Keegan Murray can't shoot threes. Anymore. He's actually gotten worse as his career has gone along. But you know what? Actually, I don't know, man. I don't know what the Kings roster is. It's never a bad idea to add shooting. Obviously, he's not an upside guy. He makes a lot of sense with Sabonis coming off screens and stuff. And he's going to get a lot of open looks if Acuff draws a crowd. You can't always be drafting like high usage guys. Again, we're at this point in the draft. Culture guy. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think he hit all the appropriate buzzwords. It kind of looks like Peja Stojakovic. That could be a little bit, part of the evaluation if you're Sacramento. I would say probably the definition of a winner in modern college basketball. Like that would be the first name who comes to mind. I think that's, it feels like kind of a slight to him to say that's like the number one skill, like the number one plus is just guy won a lot of games.
Honestly, people say the same thing about Cam Boozer.
Yeah.
Like people say it at any point in the draft, like Cam Boozer's a winner and like Caravan's a winner. And Even Terrace Reed would get that label. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so it doesn't, we're not exclusively using it for white guys that can shoot,
Yeah.
you know?
There is something intangible though about Caravan. Like I remember a lot of those games during the UConn run. Like he was not shooting it well, and he's still on the court basically all 40 minutes. You know, it's like he was the trusted guy for Dan Hurley, who is a notoriously very difficult coach to to play for. So again, it's very un-Kings. I think he's another classic guy where if he went to OKC or San Antonio or the Knicks or whoever, we would say, wow, what a great pick. But I think the Kings have badly needed guys like this for 20 years.
Yes. Yeah, again, we're at 30th pick in the draft. You're right though. Like if you are, and this was kind of my case with the Bucks wanting them to draft Burries and Morez Johnson, which is like, if you're starting this rebuild, it can't be all like upside. Every pick cannot be this like upside. Well, if it pans out, it's going to pan out big. And if it fails, it's going to fail huge kind of a guy. Like there are some stop gaps and some like, you're going to be drafting some relatively high picks for a while. You need to fill out the roster a bit.
Yeah, I think good to get an adult in the room if you're Sacramento. I not a whole lot here fantasy wise at this point in the draft. I'm looking at the Kings depth chart page. I don't know what this is going to look like in a couple of months, but we're going to see Caravan on the court in all likelihood. I don't think DeRozan's on the roster. I think they'll explore all avenues to move Zach LaVine. I mean, LaVine kind of feels like whichever teams miss out on Tyler Hero, it kind of is like, well, like I guess we're starting to look at Zach LaVine. Maybe you're looking at Kobe White, a player like that. Like there are certain guys who I think the league has kind of figured out, and we're like, all right, it turns out you might actually not be as good as we thought you were earlier in your career. LaVine is one of them, but again, there are enough desperate teams, and if Sacramento wants to clear them out, I think they will.
I think so too. Again, LaVine at this point, I don't know. I don't think he wants to be like a 6-man type, but at some point it's like that or nothing. So,
yeah, it's like, do you want to be in the NBA? All right, 30th pick of the draft is in. We have made it to the end. Dallas Mavericks go Koa Pete.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, if you are drafting, they have Morez Johnson, obviously, who they just drafted. Like there is a level, if they kind of commit to Morez Johnson at the 5 and he can shoot, and then you sort of open yourself up to play Koa Pete more, right? Because the spacing's right and you have Cooper Flag. You've turned into just like a really massive, versatile team that cares on defense. If the shooting doesn't pan out for Morez, like this could end up not being amazing. But again, another guy who has often been labeled a winner. And has been in the USA basketball system for an exceptionally long time. So knows what he's doing out there. I think this is good. This is a good pick.
Yeah, he's got multiple brothers who play in the NFL. You could probably guess they are linemen. So I think that checks out when you see his body style, when you watch him play. I think this is kind of a perfect Mavs pick. Again, they're one of those organizations that does seem to kind of target these connector types, try to maximize that. You look at some of the other options at the board at this point, and you're kind of starting to fire darts at either some older players, some of the international guys, some of these, extreme score first guards. And if you're Dallas, it's like, I don't really know what we're doing with that. I think this is a good spot for him to develop. I think you have your guy, and you brought up a great point. This was like 2.5 hours ago at this point about building your team differently when you have that foundational piece as opposed to still seeking that foundational piece. And they know they have it. There's no question about it in Cooper Flag. And then just building out and trying to envision, okay, 3 years from now, when we think we might be contending for an NBA title, like who are the guys that we want around this dude? And for me, like, Koa Pete was a tough guy to comp. Body style wise, I'm thinking like, man, a little Aaron Gordon maybe, but it's just, very different player, especially at this stage. Both were big time recruits, but Gordon was just kind of a different type of athlete and a guy who, at least early in his career, we kind of thought would develop into maybe more of like a Banchero type of offensive player. And obviously that never came. But that, it feels like every team that's made a run of late has had one of these like big, rugged, I don't want him defending my best wing type of players?
These are great types of guys to grab when you know you're going to be in a playoff series and there's going to be a guy on another team who has caught fire.
Yep.
And for one reason or another, the guys you have on the floor just can't deal with it. And you need someone to come in, and maybe it's for 4 minutes, and be like, I need you to I don't care how many fouls you pick up, stop that guy.
Yeah.
And Go Up Pete, I think, can be that guy across multiple positions.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you laying it out. It's like, not only for the Mavericks, what does the future look like with Cooper Flag, but like, what does the future of the NBA look like? We're young enough to have to be thinking about like, what does the NBA look like in 3 or 5 years? And it's continued to be these like highly versatile, switchable, not necessarily like monstrously tall guys. It's just like, are these players big? Can they switch? Are they smart? Can they pass? And Pete fits that.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it a lot in terms of, teams kind of being built to stop whatever the elite team is now. And, now it's become Wembanyama, and it's like, all right, I don't really know what you do with that. But for a while, and I think will continue to be on the whole, is like, how do you stop the Jason Tatums, the Jaylen Browns? And it's usually, it's not necessarily somebody who can match them height wise. It's like, who is somebody that they cannot move on their way to the basket? Like, I think this is kind of what you're looking at with Koa Pete. Like he obviously plays more like a big. He's not that tall, but I think he's the type of guy that you could totally see it being like, hey, yeah, let's try him on Wembanyama. Why not? Like he'll be like, obviously Wemby's going to have 8 inches on him, but Koa Pete's going to have 60 pounds on him.
But let's try him on SGA.
Yeah.
Let's try him on, I don't know, Stephon Castle, even like in that matchup specifically. Like that's the thing about Pete, right? Is he could probably guard 2 through 5. There's potential for him to guard 2 through 5, depending on the guy.
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't think there's a single, this sounds crazy for a guy who's just drafted 30th, but like, there's not a single guy where you'd be like, yeah, I wouldn't like your chances to at least like, make life difficult on him. I'm not saying he's going to go shut down Jokic, but it's like, all right, yeah, like he's go pick up 3 fouls in 5 minutes if you have to.
Yeah, and in addition to that, he's also like a smart winning player, you know, so he's going to be relatively low mistakes. He understands how he's going to buy in. He's going to buy in. Yeah. He's not going to be worried about getting his shots.
Exactly. Not coming in expecting to be the number 2 option from day one. So like that pick quite a bit for the Dallas Mavericks. All right, we will have plenty of reaction coming your way over the next 24 hours. We'll do a ton of video content. We'll have some articles up on the site. Alex and I will be all over Twitter. Mostly tomorrow, I think, at this point, since we are at 11:30 p.m. Eastern now as we just wrap up the first round. But appreciate everybody who stopped by the stream throughout round 1. Very fun time doing this with you, Alex. I know it's going to be a long round 2 tomorrow night. A lot of back end work, of course, on a night like this for us at RotoWire. But good stuff, dude, and looking forward to hearing all your reactions from round 1.